the message board stuff, so I still read the message boards. And you guys are always on message boards saying, well, the coaches are making excuses, or they're not taking accountability, or they're doing this or doing that. And we got some really funny examples right now of coaches really holding players accountable. Maybe not holding themselves accountable, but holding themselves accountable, holding the players accountable. And we'll let you listen to little Paul Maneri from last night as he revisited the situation from Saturday and talked about his ball club and talked about their energy level and his expectation. And I got to admit, after hearing it last night, I kind of went, all right, Paul, I'm kind of on your side a little bit here. A coach can only do so much. A coach can only, in a locker room, I mean, let's be honest, how many coaches, there are those that are out there, but how many coaches are great motivational speakers? Do they have to all be great motivational speakers? I know you got some that are phenomenal. But I don't know. I was kind of intrigued by Paul Maneri. But South Carolina last night, 8-2 win over Wofford. Shout out to KJ Scobie. It's 4 games. There's 52 left. KJ Scobie's off to a start, buddy. 4 hits last night. He had the big home run on Friday night to pick up the victory. I know. He struck out Saturday with the bases loaded, and you had everything you wanted, a chance for him to have back-to-back game winners. And it was unfortunate, and I hate it for the young man. It reminded me of the Michael Jordan. I think it was Michael Jordan, the saying about how many shots he took that did not win games. I don't remember the exact phrasing of it. But KJ Scobie off to a great start. South Carolina baseball picks up a win. They'll be taking on Gardner-Webb in just a few hours on a windy day over at Founders Park. I didn't even think about it until I'm standing here now. As I was walking in to our studio, the wind, I believe, was blowing into me, but I don't know what that translates to what it's doing over at Founders Park. I don't know if that means the wind is blowing out or blowing in. I'm trying to think directionally how that kind of comes. I believe just gauging from walking in that the wind today would be blowing out to right field. I think I don't have a good guess on that, and but it could be a wild and wacky 4:00 game over there against Gardner-Webb, and we'll have that for you and get you set for that. So baseball, a little bit of baseball talk today. Also, we'll get into a little bit of basketball talk. South Carolina goes down to Florida last night, and they lose 78-64 in that ball game. And I don't know, man. I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm not trying to dog on this team. They are what they are. The season is now what the season is. The old proverbial, what is it? The zebra has its stripes, or the leopard has its print. What's the saying? Do you remember?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
You know, listening to Coach Paris post-game with Derek and Casey, again, they lost the game last night, but the prevailing point of the conversation was, well, you looked better than when they beat you by 47 points a couple weeks ago. Like, that's kind of where things are at right now. Like, yeah, you lost, but it wasn't as bad as, the last time you saw them. Like, it's kind of where things are at right now.
I think I said 78-64. I meant 76-62. I don't know why I gave each team 2 more points, but 76-62 last night. Tyler, fine, but I'll be honest, and this is me speaking. I don't want to get anybody else in trouble. I don't want anybody else mad at anybody else at this station, or Tyler, or Captain Dave. It felt, and this is how the Alabama game felt too on Saturday, it felt like Florida was just there.
Yeah.
It really, like, that. Cool, you competed better. Sure. It also felt like Florida was just like, all right, can we get this one over with and move on to whatever's next for us? Like, I don't, you get the old proverbial, they're getting someone's best shot.
Yes.
South Carolina ain't getting anybody's best shot anymore. There's a lot of teams who are kind of showing up, and it feels like, to me, other teams are just going. That's what I felt like watching that game last night.
It feels like you're the team that teams can kind of go through the motions against, right? Like, we know what Florida and Alabama are capable of when they're playing their A-plus game. Did both teams play A-plus games against Carolina the past games? Not necessarily, but they're C+, B- game, whatever it was still enough to was still good enough to beat you in pretty convincing fashion. And Carolina scored a couple points late there at the end last night to close the gap. But really, Florida navigated around 18 to 20 points, it felt like, for a lot of the back half of that second half. So, again, you kind of closed the gap there at the very end, but that's not necessarily indicative of really how the game itself went, it felt like.
No, yeah, you're exactly right about that. And back to your kind of point, that ball, yeah, you didn't lose by 40-something this game. And by the way, in the game here in Columbia, Florida did play their A-plus game.
They did.
It was Florida is not 40 whatever points better than South Carolina. They are probably more than 14 points, but there's a line somewhere in the middle of that.
Yeah.
But we'll continue to watch what I have deemed as the year of Jeremiah Donati with the decisions he has to make on his athletic program moving forward. And up first and foremost is going to be basketball, and we'll see South Carolina. Now, this is a little interesting, depending on what you want your definition of interesting to be, Tyler. If there's a game that you would deem winnable on the schedule left, I don't know why I'm not. South Carolina, it feels like, always stinks in Mississippi, and they got to go to Oxford. I know that Ole Miss and Chris Beard are not great, but if there was a game that is winnable on the remainder of this schedule, it's Saturday against Mississippi State. Like, that's kind of, I'm looking at that one like, all right, and not that a win there changes my opinion of anything, but a loss, I feel like, is the final nail. I feel like would be the final nail in the coffin. Mississippi State, for those you wondering, is 12-13, 4-8 in conference. Mississippi is worse. They're 11-14, 3-9. But again, the Gamecocks have to go to Oxford, and it feels like in my lifetime I've never seen the South. I'm sure they've won down in Oxford, but
sure.
It feels like a house of horror since I was little for South Carolina. So that one I feel like is harder than getting Mississippi State at your place on Saturday.
Yeah, that's a team, again, kind of towards the bottom of the SEC, like South Carolina is, one that struggles on offense in their own right. So, yeah, it's maybe the most gettable game that you have left. Again, does winning that game really change the season at all? No, but it's better than ending the season on, however, because what a 7-game losing streak right now, where you could be looking at a double-digit losing streak to end out the season. So it gives you something to break it up in the middle at the very least if you can pull that off. But again, nothing comes easy this season, it seems like.
Could we challenge Mississippi State and Chris Jans? How would you feel about this? What if we put the word out? It's Wednesday at 12:08. We're not going to play the game. We're going to have a one-on-one between Josh Hubbard and Michi Johnson. Winner gets the W.
Okay, sure.
That's the game.
Yeah.
Let's eliminate the other guys. It's just Michi. By the way, if you don't know who Josh Hubbard averages 21.4 points per game. He's a fun guard to watch. He shoots it. He's their Michi Johnson. He's 33.3% from three, 77.2%. Like, just maybe if I'm Lamont Paris, I just call up Chris Jans and be like, I tell you what, we're not going to play everybody else. You put Hubbard, I'll put Michi. We're just going to have a one-on-one game. We'll play to 21, and whoever wins, Michi or Josh, the team gets the victory.
I think that might be more compelling from an entertainment standpoint than watching both these teams play 40 minutes. I'm not opposed to it.
Josh Hubbard's fun to watch. Michi Johnson, by the way, this is another part of this. How will he go down in Gamecock lore? Because the natural assumption, I think, with Michi, because of the way he plays at times, is to write him off and not give him the credit that's due. But my goodness, where would this team be without Michi Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, through the struggles this year, he's been a guy that's been close to the most consistent of anybody on this team. Obviously was a part of that team that made the tournament a couple years ago. Again, you had the couple off years where he was at Ohio State. So he's done a lot of things in a Gamecock uniform. Unfortunately, majority of those seasons haven't been great, so I don't think it's going to be looked back in the same reverence as guys in years past on more consistently successful teams. But yeah, he's somebody that I think he's going to be, whether the Lamont Paris era ends this year or not, he is the player of the Lamont Paris era. Is that fair to say? Like, he is the poster child face of what the Lamont Paris era was.
It'll be Colin Murray Boyles.
You think so?
Local kid turned into a top 10 draft pick. It'll be Colin Murray Boyles, but Michi is going to be an interesting footnote because of what we saw with him being a part of that great team 2 years ago.
Yeah.
really at that time, if you go back that year, being the heart and soul. I'm not saying he was the best. I mean, he's a great player, but being kind of the heart and soul of that team. I go back, they lost that game to LSU that year because he got hurt. I think he only had like 4 points that game, but you could tell South Carolina lost their swagger in that game, and they blew a big lead at home. Michi's got that attitude about him, but it's not been enough to carry him this year. Last night, by the way, 22 points, 6 of 16 from the field, 9 of 9 from the foul line. We talk about players in our lifetime, Tyler, that come through a program, and right now Michi's averaging 16.9 points per game for the season. There's going to always be that weird thing of like, hey, you got us to the NCAA tournament, and then you left us. And I get it didn't work out. Now you come back, and it's going to be very interesting how we talk about him or what he's exactly remembered for. Yeah,
that is going to, and again, it's tough to have that conversation right now while it's still going on. But yeah, as time goes on, a year or two down the road, and whatever Michi's next adventure in basketball is going to be, it'll be interesting to see how people look back on his time here and the way that he is remembered for what he did do and what the teams maybe didn't do during his time here. So basketball last night, baseball again. We'll have baseball for you coming up later today, and we'll let you hear a little bit of Paul Maneri, as I was saying. Okay, Paul, you said some stuff last night. I kind of went on Paul Maneri's side. I kind of like, you know what? Oh, Paul, he's doing it right. But anyway, 803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in. Yeah, I don't want to do it, but Texter weighs in. How about those? Is it Charleston or is it College of Charleston? What are we exactly calling them? Do you know? It used to be College of Charleston growing up. I think is it just Charleston now? I think it's still College of Charleston.
Are we calling them College of Charleston? COC?
I think you'll accept either one.
Okay. Texter weighs in. Got to give Charleston baseball some love. Yeah, I'm not thrilled about doing it. I'm a Coastal fan. I'm a Kevin Schnall fan. But last night, how about old Chad Holbrook and College of Charleston, or just Charleston, knocking off number 6. Knocking off number 6. Coastal Carolina, really good in-state baseball game last night. Yeah, that's huge, obviously, and there were a couple upsets around the country last night when it came to midweek baseball. So yeah, shout out to I forget what their mascot is, but College of Charleston. Charleston? Yeah, the Cougars. Cougars. All right, cool. Cougars. Anyway, but I'd give them a shout. You're right. That was a great win for them. Great win for Chad Holbrook. Tough loss for Coastal Carolina. But again, a great win for them. 803-404-6100. A lot going on. Coach has gone crazy. We're going to get to that a little bit. The Jerome Tang situation. Boy, if Kansas State was embarrassed at Jerome Tang, and we'll get to this later on in the show, but if Kansas State was embarrassed with Jerome Tang, what do you think UCLA's feeling about Mick Cronin right about now? We'll talk about some coaching situations. We'll get into a little bit of the baseball from last night. Tiger Woods, y'all. I'm going to ask later on, it's not so much, it's more of, is Tiger Woods still an attraction? You're kind of the casual golf fan, right? Yeah. Okay, like your NASCAR is my golf. Sure. We both like golf, but is Tiger Woods, and we'll answer this later, but Tiger yesterday not shutting the door and playing the Masters, and it got me thinking, like, is he still an attraction that you're like, oh, Tiger's playing? No, I have thoughts on it. Okay. Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit. Trey Dyson will join us coming up at 1:15. We'll get an old professional's opinion on South Carolina baseball coming through the first 4 games. You're listening to Tyler Head, Captain Dave Adair, and Bill Gunner. It's the halftime show.
Connor was really good. I was just telling him how proud I was of him because he had 3 infield hits. You know, it's a lot of times a pitcher gets frustrated because you're making good pitches. I mean, one of them was hit hard. Scobie made a great play on the dive for the ball, but the other 2 were just, you know, good pitches, and they ended up getting infield singles because their team can really run. And Connor didn't get frustrated. He just kept making good pitches. He did a tremendous job. He threw strikes. You know, there's no defense against the base on balls. That's what we say all the time. Throw the ball over the plate, got a chance to get people out, and that's what Chicola is. He's a strike thrower. He mixes his pitches. He did a tremendous job, and honestly, we badly needed it, having 2 midweek games and, you know, a little bit thin in the bullpen. We have, 3 or 4 guys that are down. So he really did a tremendous job for us.
Those are the words last night of Paul Mainieri on last night's game and the performance there of, in particular, the pitching staff. And then you heard him praise KJ Scobie, who I think is off to an incredible start. Again, I hate that. I hate it for Scobie that he struck out Saturday afternoon with the bases loaded and a chance to win that game. But he is something kind of special the way he is off to the start of the season. But Tyler, as I said, it was not a must win. I don't know if there's a must win in baseball because of the kind of things you can do. But I will say this: when South Carolina wins in baseball, I was thinking about this last night and then driving in again today. It's not fun right now because I think wherever everybody's at. You ran the poll. Are you excited? It's relief. Does that make sense? Yep. Like when South Carolina wins a game, and that's not a fun spot to be in. Like it's almost like a relief.
Yeah, because again, the historical expectations of this program are so high. And look, you won the series this weekend against Northern Kentucky. Wasn't the prettiest. Again, you were, a couple of hits going a different way of dropping that series with how game number 2 played out and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't like a satisfying series victory, and especially considering the fact that you handled all your mid-major non-conference teams pretty handily a season ago. I won't say a lot was riding on last night, but it had to look a certain way to feel good about the win. If you go out there and it's a, 3-2 win again, or you have to hit another walk-off in the bottom of the 9th, yeah, you won. Yeah, you're 3-1, but it's not something that people can feel good about coming away from. And I thought last night, again, you got off to a bit of a rough start there with Chicola giving up the home run on the second pitch, and then Scobie's throws being late, which put a couple guys on base. So you're a little bit worried there early on, but everybody settled in, and you go on to have a pretty convincing win. It's a win that you can feel good about the day after because of the way that it looked. And that's the thing. When it comes to beating these mid-major teams, it has to look a certain way. It has to feel a certain way. You can't just keep coming back. You can't keep having walk-offs against these guys and expect your fan base to feel good about it. Last night's win was more than those more like, all right, you kind of asserted your dominance. You won convincingly. Let's move on to the next one type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's just right now everybody's in kind of a state of like, I don't want to see another loss after Saturday. And it's kind of like we should be dominating these teams, kind of like you just said. That's the history, tradition of South Carolina baseball. And last night they go out and do it. You're right, a little bit of a rough start, but then the bats get going. Things kind of snowball on the good side of things, and South Carolina plays like they're expected. Now, here's the thing. Less than 24 hours later, they got to play another baseball game. And on Saturday, that was an issue. Mm-hmm. Paul Mainieri discussed that again. And this is where I kind of sided with Paul Mainieri last night. I listened to what he said, and I kind of really like this. Let's listen. This is Paul Mainieri last night after the game, and it was brought back up about the team's energy level and an expectation. He talks a little bit about an expectation. Here's Paul Mainieri last night talking, kind of revisiting his comments about how his team kind of performed and the attitude they arrived at the ballpark with on Saturday.
Well, I told them, we're going to enjoy this drive home, and then we're going to turn the page. I'm not making excuses for them anymore. It's not going to be because they're tired. We need to go out tomorrow night and play with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. I was just really, I was disappointed. We had such a nice crowd at the game Saturday, and they were just waiting to have fun and explode, and we just never gave them a reason to. And I never used the word embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed because, it just happens sometimes. But we got to get some adrenaline and realize that each day is a new day. And and we didn't turn the page quickly enough from last Friday night to Saturday, and I'm pretty confident that tomorrow will be different.
I don't know. There was something that resonated with me on that and Paul Maneri about the way he explained that.
Yeah, and I'll go back to our conversation yesterday where I think, Maneri maybe said too much about the fatigue and the energy level about what happened on Saturday that now heighten our concern about it. I think it would have been a talking point, but him highlighting a specific, saying, hey, these guys just weren't up for game number 3 and what was the opening weekend of the season, I think makes us more consciously aware of that being an issue and keeping a closer eye on it going forward. But last night looked fine, and yes, tonight's going to be a little bit more of a test. But yeah, it's kind of one of those things like you shouldn't be having this problem, especially early on in the season. And again, I think tonight's going to go a long way in seeing if this is going to be an issue or not going forward.
Well, it's more of, and in this day and age, now with NIL, and I have no clue what baseball's got. I couldn't even ballpark a number, like what KJ Scobie's getting. I don't 25,000, 50. I have zero idea. And so I say that, but I actually thought it was refreshing to kind of hear him come back and say, look, the crowd was there. And I agree, maybe in baseball more than anything, I don't know how you pump up your players, because baseball is a different kind of emotional game than football or basketball, right? And so, Ray Tanner had his own way of doing it, and it was magic. It was magic. It was few have the ability to do what Ray Tanner was able to do. I think he did it. If you listen to some of the guys we've had on the past, we'll have Trey Dyson coming up in about an hour. I think Ray Tanner did it through fear. Yeah. Honestly, I go back to some of the conversations I've had with him. But the point being on this is, like, I don't know. There's something there with Paul Maneri early in the season almost being like, as a coach, not doing it privately, doing it publicly, being like, we got to be, and it felt like almost an apology to the fans of like, I get it, my guys weren't ready. Yeah, I'm gonna hold them accountable for that.
Yeah, well, we talk about it all the time that when coaches do these media availabilities, not really talking to the media, they're more sending messages through the media to their team, their coaches, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that was a way of getting the message out there, like, hey, what the energy you guys brought on Saturday was unacceptable. You got to be better with that. And we'll obviously see what that's going to be going forward. But yeah, he's basically pointing out, hey, the other elements were there. We didn't do what we didn't hold things up on our end, and obviously we'll see if that's going to be different now.
I liked it. I'll admit there was just something that kind of resonated. It feels like we're in a very weird time all of a sudden in the last 5 days with coaches. Jerome Tang is holding his players accountable at Kansas State and saying, I ain't bringing any of these guys back. They're an embarrassment to the university, an embarrassment to the fans. And then he's fired. If you didn't see, we'll talk more about this in the next hour. If you didn't see Mick Cronin, we can't play it on air. But if you didn't hear, during a break, Google Mick Cronin last night so you can and do it when there's not little kids' ears around. Mick Cronin got asked a question about the Michigan State student section last night, and he did not like the question. And then proceeded to act like a complete grade A jerk. But he also, Mick Cronin last night, ejected one of his own players. Yep. Not sure I've ever seen that before.
That's a new one.
But these coaches, and Tyler, it's just interesting because it feels like coaches, and I'll give you another example. You see the Northern Illinois football coach who would become beloved, like a person, and he talked about I think it was last year, talking about Northern Illinois being a stepping stone and NIL and all that. And he looks around, he's like, I ain't doing this anymore. I'm going to be, an administrator for the Seattle Sound. He's not even doing on-the-field coaching. He's an administrator. Yeah. I think college coaches are like, you guys are getting paid, and you're giving me attitude. This ain't going to work.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of guys that have either walked away from the game completely or, gone to the NFL like, hey, I just want to coach ball. I don't want to have to deal with all this kind of stuff because it's too much. And you, as a head coach, you have become more than just a guy coaching a football team. You're now having to be a CEO and a GM to a degree and worrying about salary caps and roster management and all that kind of stuff that for years and years and years you didn't have to worry about. And some guys, like, again, Saban could have hung around longer if we weren't in the NIL era because he seemingly got fed up with it and the way things were changing. He decided to walk away, and there's a lot of coaches following that same path.
803-404-6100. We'll come back, get back into the other thing from last night. That would be the men's basketball game. We'll let you hear a little bit from Lamont Paris as well. You're listening to the Halftime Show.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to downplay this. This is also a team that's playing as well or certainly better than anybody in our league. As we're winding the season down, they know what postseason play and advancement looks like. They have expectations, and so they're not on their court certainly going to come out and be flat.
Yeah.
There was no flatness to them. This was our guys playing. I mean, our guys played and competed.
That is the words of Lamont Paris last night discussing South Carolina and Florida. And one thing he's dead right about right now, if you're not paying attention, Florida has turned on the Jets. And if you look at the Gators right now, like I know a lot of you probably don't pay attention to basketball rankings and probably really don't pay a ton of attention to college basketball right now. Florida is up to number 12 in the polls. They're playing like a top 4 team in the country.
Yeah, they legitimately look like a team that's capable of backing up their national title from a year ago. Did they play their best game last night? Not necessarily, but we saw a couple weeks ago how good they're good can be at the other games they played since then in the SEC. Like, they are one of the most dangerous teams in the country right now.
Yeah, no, I will say this. March Madness is going to be an absolute blast. I don't think everybody at the beginning of the season thought Michigan was head and shoulders above everybody else. But I'll be honest, Michigan, and then this is really the top 5, but Michigan, Houston, Duke, Arizona, and Connecticut are all extremely legit. Iowa State is boring, but they're really good. I just mentioned Florida. Kansas, if Darren Peterson is playing, is crazy to watch. Purdue's always really well. I mean, the NCAA tournament is going to be a lot of fun. Now, with that being said, South Carolina still has to navigate what they're doing. And last night, Tyler, this is where I kind of disagree. Florida, to me, didn't come out with kind of came out just like, all right, we're here. We know what we did to these guys last time. And we're gonna play our game and kind of go from there.
Yeah. And look, for anybody that's ever been on any kind of sports team before, especially from a good team, there are teams you can look out on the other side and like, hey, these guys don't really match up to us. We don't have to go out there and set the world on fire to win this game. And again, it's kind of what you looked at with Alabama and Florida in these last 2 games. That they just kind of went out there, they played. They didn't go out there and maybe execute perfectly, but they won the game, and you were never worried about Carolina beating them, right? Like, Carolina brought it down to 6 points at the end of the first half for a late turnover there, and a couple scores by Florida made it 10 points at halftime. And, then Florida just kind of managed that 15 to 20 point gap for most of the rest of the game until the very end when Carolina got a couple late scores. So, even on a night where Florida wasn't playing its best, you never really felt like Carolina was a true threat to knock them off last night.
803-404-6100. So Tyler has a question, and I'm kind of interested to hear the response on this because we are closing in, I guess, if you will. And again, nobody wants to talk about this, Tyler, but this is where we are at on what the future of Lamont Paris and this basketball program is going to be. And by all accounts, Jeremiah Donati has not made a decision at this point. Some of the discussion here is the amount of NIL money that South Carolina has and where it correlates in the SEC and how low it is. South Carolina is one of the bottom 2 teams in the league, if not the bottom team when it comes to NIL in the SEC. And look, I don't care who your coach is, that's going to hamper them, right?
Yeah.
But you've got a question that I think is actually pretty intriguing.
Yeah, so again, we know that a decision's going to have to be made here at the end of the season. Do you keep Lamont Paris or do you move on from him? I know a lot of people are saying fire Lamont Paris. There is a buyout that you have to worry about there that could hinder that decision. There's also the concern of, hey, he's only been operating with X amount of resources compared to other teams in the SEC. So my question is, let's say Jeremiah Donati comes out today and says, you know what, Lamont Paris is coming back next year, but we're going to guarantee he has $12 million in NIL resources to work with. And that's not the top of the SEC, but it's more competitive than what you've had over the course of these past couple years. Are you how does that make you feel as a fan? Are you more on board with that? Do you think, no, you got to make a change at coach regardless? Does having more resources give you more hope? Where are you at if that was the decision? Not saying it's going to be, but if they said we're keeping Paris and we're guaranteeing him more resources than what he's had up to this point, do you feel confident that Carolina can get back to being competitive with that decision being made?
I don't have an answer on this as it pertains to what is the biggest driving factor in what South Carolina basketball is at right now. Is it coaching? Is it the head coach? Or is it NIL dollars? And don't be naive and think NIL dollars are not part of this issue. And they would be, again, if South Carolina hired Sean Miller and they're giving him whatever, I've heard anywhere, and I know Mike Morgan has said numbers, J.C. Sherbert has said numbers, people said, and I've heard anyway, and these are respectable people who know what they're talking about. I've heard anywhere from $5 to $8 million. And let me tell you, $5 in college basketball. Hey, here's $10. Go to the store and get us dinner, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's literally what you're telling Lamont Parish to do. Here's $10. Go feed a family of 4. But $12 million. You're right. It's
better.
That's putting you closer to the middle of the league.
And it's a number that, and again, we don't know all the figures for Carolina when it comes to NIL, that you hope is more feasible, right? Are you going to suddenly dish out $22 million for men's basketball like Kentucky? No, that seems kind of out of the realm of possibility. Could you step it up a few $1 million more? Hopefully, right? So, and again, I'm just throwing out that number as something that we kind of feel like is more in that competitive area of the SEC if Carolina was able to do that. So if you promise that Lamont Paris was going to have competitive money in the SEC, are you willing to give him another season? Is my question for you as a fan.
Greg weighs in on our text line and says, is the program at the bottom with NIL from lack of funding from the school or from the collective not getting the donations or something completely different? I don't have an answer. I truly do not have an answer as to the budget on that. And I don't think Jeremiah Donati wants to sit down and discuss it.
No, all these numbers are speculative. We have to go off of what's being heard, what's being reported. We can take a guess. We know they're towards the bottom of the SEC. Why exactly is the question that we can't specifically answer.
803-404-6100, how you can weigh. Let's go to the phone lines. Zach wants to weigh in. Zach, how you doing this afternoon? What's on your mind?
Doing good. How about y'all?
Good.
Doing good.
Hope, to Tyler's specific question, I would say yes. Save the money, the buyout. You're not going to get that much more successful using the same NIL budget that we used this year, moving into next year, no matter who your coach is. And ultimately, you're just setting them up for failure and you're wasting the buyout money. My personal thought, and I don't know how this would work, but is just move on next year. Don't increase the NIL budget that much. Save the buyout money, save the NIL money, and then go full blast the next year. I mean, we've made the tournament, 4 times in the last 30 years or so. Why not, just save up for the one all-in year to where we've actually got an opportunity of doing it versus going half every year and expecting better than what we've done historically as a program since at least the mid-'90s.
Mm-hmm.
I'll hang up and listen.
Yeah. Are you willing to have a already agreed upon just gap year though? Because essentially what you're kind of saying there is, all right, we're going to keep everything the same, keep Lamont Paris, and save up for a lesser buyout a year from now. You're almost kind of willing to admit that all right, next year's not going to be anything. We're just kind of riding this thing out until we can afford to fire him. Right? Is that kind of? I feel like that's kind of the question that he's posing there.
I think now here's the way I understand it. That contract was written, and while they will owe him what is remaining on his contract. Let's just say he gets fired. They will owe him what is remaining over the period of his contract.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this is what I understand. Okay, I've not seen the contract, but this is the way it's worded, the way that I gather it from the wording of it. They would owe it to him through 2030. You don't have to, in most contracts, if you owe somebody $12 million, you got to come up with it within 60, 90, 180 days of the firing.
There's not like in 30 days you owe them half or anything like that?
Not the way I read it. Now, I could be wrong.
Okay.
Let me be very clear on that. I have not been able to get a straight answer because I do think that matters. So we'll talk more about this and wrap up hour number 1 when we return. I see a lot of you on the text line. I'll get to all those, and we'll finish this discussion. You're listening to The Halftime Show. Eight zero 404 6100 if you want to weigh in, as Tyler has posed the question. And look, I mean, we can't tap dance around this situation. We'd love to.
Sure.
But you got to address the elephant in the room. Maybe we should get one of those pink blow-up elephants and put it back behind us.
What happened to our chicken? We had a Gamecock in here.
That was the
get a stuffed elephant somewhere.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, if we had that chicken in here, we definitely put an elephant. But it is the elephant in the room of like, all right, what do we do with this program? Where is it going? What is the decision? And so, Tyler, you have posed a question.
Yeah, so I said, because again, we don't know for sure if Lamont Paris would be moved on from. There's a realistic possibility he could come back. But if Donati came out today and said, hey, we're bringing back Lamont Paris for another year, but we're going to guarantee he's going to have $12 million in NIL resources, which is more than what's been reported that he's had these past couple of years to work with. Again, it's not top the SEC, but it's more in line with being competitive in the conference compared to what other schools are spending. Are you willing to give him another chance, knowing that he has more resources to work with than these past couple of years? Or you're like, no, I'm done with this. We need to start over fresh with somebody new.
803-404-6100 if you want to weigh in on that. Let's go back to the phone lines. Rod from Greenville wants to weigh in this afternoon. Rod, how you doing? What's on your mind regarding basketball?
Hey, man, I'm good. Y'all, I want to hit two things, basketball and baseball, then I'm going to get off this air, get off the phone. Listen, I wouldn't give this guy another dime, man, for real. Why would you do that? So he can go to schools like Missouri and get their leftovers to come sit on the bench and suck up all the air? He got 7-footers, man, sitting on the bench that he could have used last night that wasn't doing anything. No, man. Cut your losses and get you somebody who can develop someone. Because I've looked at this whole situation. Who has he developed since he's been the head coach? And you can't say what's the name? The cat that went to the NBA last year.
Mm-hmm. Murray Boyles.
Whatever. Yeah, Murray Boyles. Yeah, you can't say that. So no, cut your losses. Next, second, I went to the baseball game last night, man, in Spartanburg. Went to that ballpark. Let me tell you something. That place was boring. It was dead. They didn't feel like a college environment. You understand what I'm saying? They didn't do replays on the video board. Them college kids was out there, man. They were just bored. You could the only thing they wanted to do was drink and socialize. That was it, man. And I was just, for the upstate, I was embarrassed, really embarrassed, because I know the difference. I've been to those baseball games where you have them at them ballpark and it's live, man. It's live and excitement. Not at that place, man. I won't be back. So, but thank God Carolina won last night. But thank y'all for letting me get on the air. Appreciate you.
No problem.
Absolutely.
Why do I feel like it's a new it's for the Spartan Burgers?
It's
a brand new
I think
stadium,
it's opened
right?
last year. Yeah,
okay, I was
going to
say.
I mean, and again, I'm just watching on TV. It looked like most minor league parks looked. I don't know all the ins and outs and bells and whistles and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't sold out, so I don't think you had like a packed to the gills crowd there to create kind of that energy and excitement like you'll get with Carolina and Clemson over at Seger in a couple weeks or anything like that. But it sounded like he didn't enjoy the environment there.
Darn kids and then wanting to drink. No, I'm just picking. Thanks for the phone call, Rod. I like this how it kind of goes around the state. Truthfully, real quick, I wish basketball would go. Basketball used to do that. I wish they'd go back around and play like one game on the road against like a smaller in-state team. It's not a smart move, and I'm not a coach, so therefore it's easy for me to say this. And the times they've done it, Tyler, like they went to Wofford, they went to Furman, they went to Charleston, they went to Elon once, had to go cover that game. They lost.
Yeah, okay.
Like I don't know if I ever remember them going to like one of the smaller schools in state and winning a game. So it's not clearly as a coach, not a smart move. But I do like that South Carolina does something like that. 803-404-6100. Let's go back to the phone lines. Johnny wants to weigh in. Johnny, how you doing? What's on your mind regarding basketball?
Doing well, fellas. How are you?
Doing good.
To echo that last caller, I mean, Lamont is a bum. I mean, he is probably going to have 3 20-loss seasons in his tenure here. It's unacceptable. And speaking of bums, I find it completely ironic that this week Tanner gets in the Hall of Fame, and this guy single-handedly has put men's sports at Carolina in the ditch. I mean, it is ridiculous. I'm perplexed that Donati, to use a term that Victor Hampton used, he needs to drop his nuts and act like a real AD and make some moves. Paul killing the program. Holbrook, Kingston. I mean, hell, I'd love to have Darren Horn back over this bum Lamont Paris. That's all I got to say about that, gents.
Thank you for the phone call. Let's move on. Next phone call, Captain Dave. Who do we got? Let's go to Dallas. Dallas, your thoughts on men's basketball?
Got like 60 seconds here.
Yeah, real quick, Dallas. You got about a minute. What you got for us?
Yeah, guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I think Lamar. I think Paris is a great guy. I don't think ill about him or anybody else for that program. But very worried about the baseball team. I'm not sold on what's going on there at all whatsoever. I've got a feeling that it's going to be another like it was last year. And the other thing, the main thing I wanted to say is, you know, our reputation in basketball, we blew that years ago. You know, given all things equal budget to whoever, Kentucky or whoever, who's the kid going to go to us? If we had $20 million for Kentucky, he's going to go to Kentucky. Our reputation is terrible. So all things being given, they're going to go to the other school. So we have no choice but to step up big time, not minimally, big time with money, whether it's to get a better coach, players, whatever. We've kind of dug ourselves into a hole that it's going to be very difficult to get out of. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Appreciate the phone call. NIL, man, new era. I normally agree with you, Dallas, but NIL, you can come out of it pretty quickly, but it requires money, as most things in life.
That's right.
It requires money. We'll come back. Hour 2 on the way. Trey Dyson's going to talk some baseball with us at 1:15. It's the halftime show.
It's all right here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialists. I tell you about it all the time, but I'm happy to remind you once again, you always need to be on the lookout for things happening around your home that may be just a little bit off. Things like cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in walls or above windows and door frames, doors or windows that might be sticking, uneven or bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door. If you notice any of these problems with your home, you could have serious foundation issues, and that's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfixit.com. They'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate those foundation issues and get them fixed so you and your family can live worry-free going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfixit.com and let our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists help you out with your foundation needs.
Oh, 1 o'clock on a Wednesday, one day away from what Gunner calls the weekend. That's right. Just as I get older, the weekend gets closer and closer to just being all 7 days. But Wednesday, tomorrow, Thursday, also means the Genesis Open, which I will be thoroughly excited to see. We'll talk a little Tiger Woods coming up later on in the program. I'm kind of interested to know from your standpoint if Tiger is still kind of an attraction. Yesterday, Tiger Woods leaving the door ajar, if you will, that he may play in the Masters. And I got to admit, kind of went, yeah, okay, whatever. If you're there, you're there. If you're not, you're not. I'm interested to hear if others feel the same way, and we'll talk more about that. We've been talking a little bit of baseball so far. South Carolina, an 8-2 winner last night over Wofford. One of the callers, Rod from Greenville, said that he didn't like the atmosphere, didn't like the stadium there, didn't think it was a very good overall feel. And Andy weighed in on our text line, 803-404-6100, and said, I was at the game too. That field was awful. They had weeds all over it. That's why Scobie couldn't throw out two of the runners from playing deep at shortstop. So on TV, you couldn't really tell that, but interesting. I believe that's Fifth Third Stadium is the name. I believe that was right. Fifth Third Stadium for the Spartanburgers up there, the minor league team. So anyway, we'll see if South Carolina continues to schedule some games up there. Obviously, the Gamecocks played a lot of games at Fluor Field in Greenville, and I know 2 years ago, I believe it was 2 years ago, they played one at the Augusta Green Jackets Stadium, which is, by the way, a phenomenal stadium down there in, I think, Augusta. I think it might be North Augusta. It might be on the South Carolina side of the river, but anyway, it's a beautiful stadium. Got an incredible actually steakhouse in the stadium that's in the stadium, but not necessarily a part of it. I don't know how to describe it, but if you ever go down to down there, I encourage to go over there and check it out and visit. But we'll see if South Carolina schedules more games up there at Fifth Third Ballpark. Obviously, again, they play a lot of games up in Greenville, Fluor Field, and so forth and so on. And now we've seen them play some games over at Segra Park. So, like to see that. 803-404-6100. Gamecocks back in action coming up in about 3 hours. We'll have it for you right here. Programming note, Tyler and I will wrap up at about 3 o'clock. Terry Ford will come in and we'll carry you to about 3:40 this afternoon. And then we'll turn it over to probably Derek and Stuart Lake. I'm thinking Derek.
Yeah, I would assume Derek is back.
My goodness, poor Derek. I mean,
yeah, I was listening to their pregame show their show on Friday during game number one. I think he said Stuart was working with like 4 or 5 different people in the first week because Derek obviously has his basketball obligations still, and once basketball's over, Derek will be full time. But yeah, there's a little rotation of characters in the radio booth right now because Derek is stretched across a couple sports, but I would assume he's back in for tonight.
You want to be a broadcaster? You want to get into that business? Derek Scott, to my knowledge, Derek would have to speak for himself on this. Derek Scott's schedule has been called the doubleheader on Friday. Actually, no, he called game one.
Yes.
Left
because he had to get on the plane.
Went to Alabama.
Yep.
Called the basketball game. Was back. I guess came back, went to Florida.
Yep.
So was back Sunday. I guess left Monday, went to Florida, called the game last night, is back, and I believe is on the call. I have to actually look at the game notes. It's not something I ever go looking at, but I believe is on the call this afternoon with Stuart Lake. I'll look that up. There you go, Faye. If you want to be a sports announcer, we might have to get Derek on just to make sure that he's surviving right now because that's one heck of about a 5-day stretch there, 6-day stretch.
This little crossover, and I have friends that do broadcasting for other schools that are kind of in a similar boat where they're calling basketball and baseball, and sometimes you got to do both in the same day depending on how the schedule shakes out. So yeah, it's a hard job. I know he obviously enjoys it and does a great job with it alongside of Stuart Lake. But yeah, I would assume he's calling the game today.
He is. No, it'll be both games will be broadcast on the Gamecock Sports Network presented by Learfield. It'll be Cade Crenshaw today with Stuart Lakes. All right, so they're giving Derek not something I ever look up and got into discussing it, but anyway, we'll we will carry on and get you to about 3:40, and then we'll turn it over to Kate Crenshaw and Stuart Lake. And I believe y'all are hoping to get Stuart Lake tomorrow.
Yeah, we're trying having him on once a week. I actually need to text him now that you reminded me. But yes, hopefully we'll hear from him tomorrow ahead of the weekend.
All right, so we'll get into all of that here as we go through the afternoon. We've been talking about that. Got into a little bit of basketball, and obviously last night did not go South Carolina's way. 76-62 loss to Florida. All right, was what it was. Tyler has presented the question, which has riled y'all up. You got two options. You bring back Lamont Paris for another year, but you guarantee Lamont $12 million in NIL money. You guarantee it.
Which we think is relatively competitive, all things considered, in the SEC. Again, you got teams spending in the 20s. You're not going to get there, but you're more in line with what I'd say the average school in the SEC is probably spending right now.
Yeah, it would make you competitive. It would be the kind of money that makes you competitive. So you got that option, or do you just move on? 803-404-6100. Let's go back to the phone. Let's keep it clean. I know you're fired up. So far, many of y'all are fired up. Let's keep it A, non-personal, please, and B, clean. Ty, you're up. How you doing this afternoon? What's on your mind?
Hey, fellas, how y'all doing today?
Good.
I'm calling about the basketball team. As y'all know, I'm not a USC fan, quote unquote, air quotes. But I've been listening to USC radio since the early 2000s, probably older than Tyler been alive since the end of Dave Odom. And I constantly, every time I hear new coaches, or when the people or the fan base is upset with the coach, fire the coach, fire the coach. And every time they do that, I see a couple things happen. Big-time coaches don't come here, or they use USC to get a job somewhere else, and then they had to go to their third or fourth choice, and they're never happy with it. Now, I'm a Frank fan. Out of all the coaches I've experienced as I listen to USC, Frank fits the bill for me as a coach. Very upset when y'all got rid of Frank. And my thing is this. If I was the athletic director for USC, it's a bigger problem than Lamont. So what I would do is let Lamont coach out his contract, guarantee the $12 million, keep the money up, because, A, when you do get a new coach, you want to go ahead and have players in place and situations in place that you're going to show the new coaches that you are committed to basketball. And two, the Nadi right now needs to start evaluating coaches on developing and making the most out of little. Because what I see is the next coach is going to have to fit the mold, just like the Indiana football coach, someone that knows talent and can develop talent and knows how to put it in place.
Hold on. You say let him coach out his contract, his entire contract?
Well, how long do you have left on his contract?
4 years, 2030.
Okay, maybe 2 more years. And this is why. You're going to have to do due diligence to find a coach that's going to come to USC and be able to succeed here. You're not going to get a big name in coaching, and you got to have a coach that's going to be able to recognize talent. I think Frank would have been great in his era of NIL. He always recognized talent, but he never could get here because of the way basketball was back then. But you need someone that caliber that knows talent, knows how to develop talent, and brings that in. And I think that's the biggest problem. And you have to go on the lower ranks and watch and trying to find a jewel and bring that up. Because like last time we were looking for a coach before you got Parrish, Sean Miller used y'all to get a better job. The other two prospects flirted with y'all, they went somewhere else, and then y'all ended up with Parrish. So I'm just saying that's what I would do, because it's going to be hard to find a good coach to come to South Carolina that has a reputation already. Just my opinion.
Appreciate the phone call, Ty. Be honest, I don't agree with you. I mean, the Sean Miller thing, I'm not going down that path, but you are right. Sean Miller used South Carolina to get Xavier. You're 100% right about that, but that should have been recognized. No offense, Ray Tanner, but that was on Ray Tanner. That was on the board of trustees. That was stupidity at its absolute finest, and it's like everybody was in on the joke except for the people that needed to make the hire. So anyway, the point being, and then you got to have a plan in hiring a coach. We'll get into it later. If it comes to that, if that situation arises,
sure,
I will share a lot more on what I know from having been in hospitality rooms with coaches and hearing things about the hiring process and getting guys after AAU tournaments that want to have a few beverages and then get really honest about things.
And I present this question not from the standpoint of, well, you just give Lamont another year and then you fire him necessarily. Like, that's not the plan going in. The anticipation will be, all right, we're going to give him the resources, thinking he finally succeeds, so you can continue on with him as your head coach. This isn't, I'm not trying to present this as you're kicking the can down the road for another year to lessen the buyout. It is like, hey, we think maybe if we hang on to him and give him more resources, he can ultimately be successful. Obviously, if he isn't, then you make a move. But I should have prefaced this by saying I'm presenting this like you're going to continue the Lamont Paris era, but make sure going forward you have enough resources to guarantee more success.
Let's get one more phone call in. Trey Dyson, do up. We're going to switch to baseball. Barry, you are up next. Barry, how you doing this afternoon? What's on your mind?
Doing good, guys. Listen to you all the time. First-time caller down in Charleston. Love you.
Cool.
Harris, I think if he could show some modicum of success down the stretch, win a couple more games, I wouldn't have a problem with giving him some more money, see what he could do, because, like you said, it's a tough job to fill. But I've got no faith in Donati. I mean, I know you guys like him. You have him on your show. He seems like a nice guy. But Tony Hannon, I mean, he re-upped him. I mean, he's done nothing with the soccer program, and he just re-upped him. So I really have no faith in Donati and what he would do. So that's my take on it anyway. Go Gamecocks.
I appreciate the phone call, and that's why I tell you, yeah, I mean, it's we're going to learn about Jeremiah Donati this year. That's why it's the year of, in my opinion, I keep saying it, joking. I think it's supposedly the year of the horse, by the way. I think it's the year of the horse. But I call it the year of Jeremiah Donati because, Barry, to your point, you're right. We're going to learn. We're going to learn. We're going to learn. Today is February 18th. The SEC tournament is, I believe, the 7th. It's the 11th. The SEC tournament starts in Nashville on Wednesday, March the 11th. I would say a month from now, by March 18th, a lot of our questions will be answered. That's 12 days, tack on another 11 or 12. So I would say in the next 25, 26 days, we're going to get our answers.
Oh, yeah. We're going to know.
803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in. And we'll get back to this. We'll get into a few other topics. But coming up next, Trey Dyson joins us. We'll get his take on the weekend baseball series and last night's game. You're listening to The Halftime Show.
It's all right here for our friends over at Tilly's Warehouse, the first wine and spirit store in 5 Points in the past 20 years. Tell you about it all the time, but I'm happy to remind you they've got anything that you need for your night, for your weekend party, tailgate, whatever you need drink-wise, they've got you covered. In fact, I was scrolling through Instagram earlier and saw they have Surfside lemonade packs available in a 12 count with a variety of flavors. You can swing on over to Tilly's Warehouse and pick up a case of that for whatever you have planned coming up. Of course, they are over there on Green Street in 5 Points, right behind the Salty Nut Cafe in the old Pavlov's building, locally family owned and operated, and give you exactly what you need with some great prices as well. By the way, if you mentioned that you heard this ad on 107.5 The Game, you can get 10% off any wine selection too over at Tilly's. Stay connected with them on Instagram and Facebook, or visit their website at tillyswarehouse.com and discover why Tilly's is your new must-visit spot over in 5 Points.
It is 1:18 on a Wednesday. Hope you're doing well. February the 18th. Bill Gunner, Tyler Head, Captain David Aaron, joined now by Gamecock baseball legend, hitting legend. Was it? I've forgotten, Trey. It's been so long. 3 home runs against Clemson in a memorable game.
I think it was more like 5.
5, 7. Yeah, you just kept hitting them. They kept throwing the ball to you, and you just kept smacking it out of the park. Yeah. What was it?
Yeah.
What was it?
I hit 2 home runs in the College World Series against Clemson. So and then I had some other good games against them. Like there was one epic game in the year 2000 when we were both ranked in the top 5. And it was an extra inning affair. I hit a 2-run homer in the 9th to tie the game. And this was a raucous crowd at Sarge Fry. It was an amazing experience. And and then I tied it again in the 11th inning, and we ended up hitting a walk-off double to win the game. And that's, honestly, I wasn't even that good, but I had some great moments. And I could actually talk to the media without giving canned responses. So that's kind of why people, might know the name still.
Oh, you were a great slouch, Judge. Don't undersell yourself there. All right, he is a baseball legend, Trey Dyson. Glad to have you back on this week. Hope you've had a good weekend. Let's start with the weekend, and I'm going to just ask you, big picture takeaway. Big picture takeaway. Gamecocks go 2-1 this weekend against Northern Kentucky.
Well, big picture is, we won the series. I think that was the first loss that Coach Maneri's had since he's been here against a non-P4 team. So never good to lose those. But that game on Saturday, or Game 3 in the series, honestly, I'm not trying to make excuses, but they really did do a great job pitching to our guys. We could not wait on that guy's changeup, and they just kept all speeding us to death, even in hitters' counts. I made a comment on Twitter. My takeaway from that third game was, our hitters kept looking for a fastball that would never come, even in hitters' counts. And they did a really good job, Northern Kentucky did, managing their pitching staff and pitch calling. And they actually had some pretty good players. So is it acceptable for us to lose to Northern Kentucky? Absolutely not. But it's not like we're the only team that has a blip on our record right now. I think more than half the SEC right now does have a loss. So our hitters, I don't know. I mean, we gotta be able to create more pressure. We got to be able to hit with runners in scoring position. We got to be able to, to hit a single every once in a while. We don't always have to swing for the fence. And I wish we would run a little bit more. I wish we'd put some more pressure on the opponents. I think we've only stole 1 base in 4 games. That's certainly not a good sign. But I thought our pitching was really good. I thought our bullpen was excellent. And, it's still really early in the season. Played great last night. And so I'm still optimistic about the group.
Hey, Trey, thanks for joining us. And the loss on Saturday was heightened a lot more by this fan base, given Maneri's comments about the team's energy level not really being ready after playing the doubleheader on Friday. How do you take that as a player, and what can be done in season to fix that, if anything? Because, again, that was very concerning to hear after the opening weekend of the season. Yeah,
I bet he would try to take that comment back if he was being honest, because that's obviously not a good look. I mean, you've got JUCO programs and Division II programs where I spent 4 years at, where doubleheaders were routine occasions. And for 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, you should not be tired from playing 18 innings of baseball at all. So, we lost the game, and so I guess that's where his mind went to. But this early in the year, I don't think we were tired. I just think the other team beat us.
He's Trey Dyson. He's Trey Dyson joining us this afternoon. He'll do it almost on a weekly basis as we'll get his thoughts throughout the season as to how the Gamecocks are performing and what he is seeing. Let's go with one of the real positives so far. I know he struck out on Saturday afternoon, but last night, KJ Scobie gets 4 hits in the game against Wofford. Friday afternoon, he hits the walk-off home run, sending it into the stadium. I can't remember which announcer it was. I loved it. He said good night and goodbye.
Yeah.
Scobie's off to a great start and is really performing, Trey, kind of like the stud that you need to lead your team.
Absolutely, yeah. He at that game on Saturday, I had a feeling that it was going to get back to Scobie. He was a long way away, but I felt like our team was kind of knocking on the door there against Northern Kentucky. I felt like if we could get to Scobie, we would win the game. And we got to him, and he struck out. But, he had a great walk-off. He's still a young player. He looks really good at shortstop and should hopefully continue to get better there. But he's going to have to do from the appearances here early, it does look like he's going to be counted on a lot for run production. And so hopefully he can, take some of the load on himself. And if you're going to be a great team, you have to have players step up and do special things, because there's great players on every team in the SEC and really across America now with how many good players are out there. But you're going to have guys like KJ Scobie step up and become an all SEC player if we want to have success this season.
Well, and I think that was a big story coming away from last night's game, was his ability to bounce back and respond after he gets up there in the bottom of the ninth on Saturday with an opportunity to win game number 3. Comes up short there, goes out there last night 4 for 5 with 3 RBIs, so he's able to really shake that off, get locked back in, and obviously it's going to be important to do those kind of things because you're going to have your ups and downs, as you know, once you get into the thick of SEC play.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and watching that game on Saturday, his first at bat, he smoked the ball into left field for a base hit on a fastball, and I think that was the last fastball he really saw for the rest of the day. So you got it's kind of a cat and mouse game, with how good these pitchers are. The game is almost more than 50% off speed nowadays, and so most of these guys can crush a fastball, but we've got to be able to hit changeups. We've got to be able to hit sliders. We've got to be able to take those close pitchers' pitches if we want to do that. So it was great to see him make an adjustment yesterday against Wofford and have a great day and a really good win for South Carolina.
What is the key to hitting with runners in scoring position? This was an area that South Carolina really struggled with last year. This past weekend, I believe the numbers were poor once again. This seems to be an area of concern that we do have to watch going forward.
Well, it kind of goes back to kind of what I'm talking about with all the off-speed pitches. When runners get into scoring position, pitchers kind of lock down. The pitching coaches, they call a different type of game, meaning they never want to give in, usually meaning they're going to kind of avoid trying to throw as many fastballs. And you've got to be able to kind of almost sell out to some off-speed pitches in those at-bats. That's kind of what I wish we would try to do a little bit. But in addition, whenever you don't run, which we do not run, we did not run last year. Like I said, we've only got 1 stolen base in 4 games this year. If you don't create pressure, consistent pressure, it's what does pressure do? Pressure creates better pitches to hit for your hitters. And so if we could create a little bit more pressure, we could potentially see some better pitches to hit, especially with runners in scoring position. And but I'm sitting here talking like I'm some genius or something. At the end of the day, you just gotta kind of man up and be the guy in those situations. And when you can do it and you can do it successfully, then comes the confidence. And if you can develop the confidence, then you can become the best hitter with runners in scoring position the game has ever seen. But you got to kind of crack the code to kind of do it one time before you can start to see sustained success.
He is Trey Dyson, former Gamecock and Gamecock legend, and actually he's not a former Gamecock. He is always a Gamecock. About a minute and a half left with you here. The adage in football is that the most improvement made is from week 1 to week 2. South Carolina last night started a string of 5 games in 6 days. Wofford, Gardner-Webb tonight, and the series this weekend against the service academies. Where does is that similar in baseball? What are we looking for for in these next 4 games in 5 days to see improvement in this team and to take a step forward from the Northern Kentucky series?
Well, obviously, we kind of talked about it. I mean, we got to be able to hit. We got to get runners on base. We got to create some action on the base paths, and we got to be able to knock them home with runners in scoring position. So far, the pitching has been really good. I mean, we've been filling up the zone. We've got some talented arms. Our bullpen has been really good. All that's good. It's just a matter of getting those offensive guys to settle in, get some confidence. Bo Hollins he's off to a rough start so far this year. I think he's like 1 for his first 15 or 16 or something like that. So you got to get him going. He's going to be huge for us, or we got to have him. So hopefully he'll be able to break out this weekend, and some of the other guys as well. Hopefully KJ Scobie stays hot. Like I said, I think we've got some great talented players. We just got to be able to fight that Gamecock baseball spirit and start dominating some people, especially in the non-conference. That's what I'm looking forward to tonight and this weekend.
Trey, always appreciate it, buddy. Look forward to speaking with you again next week to get your take on where things stand. Going to be a fun series this weekend against Army, Navy, and Air Force. Hope you and the family are doing well. And, again, we look forward to catching up next week.
Wish you the best as well, Bill. Great to be on. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Trey Dyson, old Gamecock legend. He got 2 home runs. I told you 3. He should have just let me go with it.
Yeah.
It's memory fades a little bit as you get older, but good to have Trey on to give his breakdown of South Carolina baseball. We'll come back. Jerome Tang, Mick Cronin, coaches gone wild. We'll discuss some things going on in the college basketball world and coaches in general. It's the Halftime Show. thank you again to Trey Dyson for joining us there. Captain Dave will get that segment. If you're just tuning in, Captain Dave will get that segment up. We'll put it on our podcast. He is incredible and probably has already done that, but we'll get it up on our webpage where you can go to 1075thegame.com, click on the shows tab. You can click on the halftime show and really just about any segment you miss. If there's something that you hear about and you're like, man, I want to hear what those two goons had to say, well, you can go back and listen to it. For example, earlier, Tyler has asked the question, and we'll go back into it. Yeah. We'll get back into it, but Tyler has asked the question, would you be willing to bring Lamont Paris back for one more year with the caveat that he gets $12 million in NIL money? And I'll get to a lot of these text messages. Mm-hmm. You'll get the response, and I'll let you kind of play off of it.
Yeah, no, and again, I knew this was going to be something that was going to rile people up because, again, we're getting down to decision time. And look, this is the first real huge decision. I know somebody referenced earlier that, Donati extended our guy Tony Annan, but in terms of like the major sports here at South Carolina, this is going to be the first time he's going to come to a crossroads and say, okay, are we going to continue down this path with the coach that's been here before I got here, or am I ready to make a change and bring in my own kind of hire? And regardless, it is going to be a polarizing decision, whether you keep Paris and maybe inject more money into the program or move on and bring in somebody else. The fan base is going to react one way or the other.
I'm with you on that, and again, judging by a lot of the responses here, y'all will not be happy if Lamont Paris is brought back. But again, as I said, today is February the 18th. The SEC basketball tournament starts March the 11th, I believe is what I said, and so that's roughly about 26 days away. In South Carolina right now, I'm really not sure how the tiebreaker would work. They are tied for last in the league with LSU, so I don't know if
the league concerned about tiebreakers for dead last.
No, not
I don't think they are. But I also present this question to introduce the idea to a lot of people because I think most think it's a foregone conclusion. Oh, he's definitely gone, which I can understand why you'd think that, but it's not a slam dunk that's definitely going to happen. There is the case of the buyout and all that kind of stuff. You could see Lamont Paris back next year. Like, that is a very possible outcome of this in the next couple weeks. And again, if you can promise that he's going to have a lot more resources, does that make you feel better or worse? That's up to you.
Well, all right. We'll stay on this. We'll come back to Jerome Tang probably in the next hour. I want to get to Tiger Woods next. There are some caveats to this that is not the way it used to be. And here's what I mean about this. The transfer portal, I don't have my calendar. I don't have the calendar right dead in front of me. I believe the transfer portal opens 6 days after the Monday night of the national championship game. I
thought it opened the next day.
I'll have to look. I was under the impression it was later. I thought there was a small window, but you might be right.
I think it is.
It might be Tuesday the 7th. Anyway, here's my point on that. I personally like, now you got to build around them, and none of them are program changers, but I like E.J. Walker. I like Eli Ellis, and if you've listened to this program, even though he's played horribly, or he's not shot the ball well, he hasn't played horribly, but he shot the ball horribly. I think he's at like 8%. I like Grant Polk. I like those three. Can you get development out of Cam Scott? Can any of those guys that are over there continue to develop? What does Marcus Johnson look like, who's a top 50 prospect coming in? Now, the question is for a guy like Eli Ellis or Grant Polk or E.J. Walker, can you keep them?
Right.
Because, you're talking about the NIL money,
yeah,
and that's obviously going to be a part of it. And it's easy for a lot of you to go, Bill, they're 11 and 15, 2 and 11. None of those guys are worth keeping. Yeah, but I also am not real thrilled with the prospect of going, all right, Lamont, you got to bring in 12 new guys.
Look, I think we've learned, especially in these past couple of years, you can have good players on bad teams. Right? Like, you had a team in Lamont Pierce's first year that was led by Gigi Jackson. That was a really bad team. In the second year with Colin Murray Boyles, that was a bad team, and he went on to be a lottery pick. So you can have good players on bad teams. Not saying any of those guys are going to end up being as good as both those guys were, but you still can look at those guys as foundations to build your program going forward, especially for the guys that are freshmen like Eli Ellis and Grant Polk, because theoretically they're only going to continue to get better. So again, you do have to hang on to them because that's part of this too. And Eli Ellis, is somebody that is well known and could command a lot more on the NIL market if he chooses to do so. You do have to go down that path of, okay, what's it going to take to retain these guys if we're going to continue to build with them?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. There's so many now in sports, not just basketball, but there's so many different caveats. I mean, I'll give you an example. I know a lot of you were fired up about the Shane Beamer situation at the end of last year, and a lot of you were fired up about Lenora Sellers and how he had necessarily played. But I wonder if Lenoris had transferred and, let's say, gone to Miami or gone to LSU, and now you're looking at almost starting over, even if you got Kendall Briles with a brand-new quarterback. Mm-hmm. How do people feel? Well, you got Lenoris back, and we talked yesterday, Heisman odds. He's at least on the list. That's a start. And it's kind of the same thing. Like, if you're going to have Lamont Paris and you say, well, here's $12 million, but at the same time, now you got to replace all 12 guys, and I don't know. I truthfully, you mentioned it, the numbers, we don't know. We really don't know. I don't know what the going rate is for a quality point guard. I don't 1.5, 2. I don't know. I got none. I got nothing on that. South Carolina needs big guys. South Carolina needs big guys. I don't know if another team in the country has 2 7-footers who have shot 33s. Mm. It's pretty actually a wildly impressive stat. But South Carolina, and I didn't realize, kind of laughing, Jordan Butler and Asandiko have both shot 15 threes apiece. They're 9 of 30 on the year. But you got to get big guys. You really either need Cam Scott to develop into that athletic scoring wing that he was expected to be, or you got to go get one of those. Kobe Knox is a very good sixth man. He really is. I don't know if he's an SEC starter, but he's having to be an SEC starter because you don't have somebody who can beat him out right now.
Right.
And so there's a lot of things like that you have to pour money into, where $12 million is going to help you and be more competitive. Now, $12 million is not going to buy. You should not. I mean, you can have great coaching, and maybe you can come across a few diamonds in the rough as they did with Talon Cooper and B.J. Mack. But $12 million theoretically is not going to buy you an SEC championship.
Well, and I think kind of going back to the response we've gotten on the text line and the phone lines so far, I don't think there's a lot of confidence right now in Lamont Paris's ability to scout talent. Now, again, you went out there and you got a couple of very key pieces like B.J. Mack and Talon Cooper in that year that you went to the NCAA tournament. But the other years, it's been misses more often than not. You look at this team as well, where you theoretically went out there and got the type of guys that you needed for this team to be successful, but they're not executing in the way that they were expected to. Sharp Jumps is okay. You got a couple big men, as you mentioned, with Asandiko and Jordan Butler. I know he was here from a year ago, but they're not panning out and playing their roles the way that you were expecting them to play. So it's like, okay, is Lamont Paris just not a good enough evaluator of talent? Does he not have enough money to spend on the talent that he needs? Is he trying to fit square pegs into round holes? Like, what is it? We can't answer all those questions perfectly, but again, if you are running back with him next year and you're investing more resources, your hope is that he's able to garner better talent and continue to evaluate better talent with more resources at his disposal.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Let's go to the text line here. A lot of y'all are weighing in.
By the way, that window does open up the day after the national championship.
Okay,
yep.
All right. Text weighs in and says, players get better when they have someone to develop them. Jacob weighs in and says, Lamont left a scholarship spot open this past offseason. This past offseason, money was never rumored to be an issue. Everybody and their mom knew we needed a point guard. Guess what our coaches didn't think we needed? There is zero doubt in my mind if he is given more resources, they will be squandered. Now, I'll say this. Say what you want, Jacob. Say what you want. You're right, but Lamont thought that Michie Johnson and Eli Ellis would be the point guards. And I don't agree with that. You don't agree with that. But I can see where Lamont was thinking. Again, just because I don't agree with him doesn't mean I don't understand his mindset on what he was trying to accomplish.
And I think people are less forgiving on the Michie side of things because we kind of already knew what Michie Johnson was because he'd been around college basketball for 4 years prior to coming back this year. Eli Ellis, you can say, okay, freshman coming in, we'll see how he transitions to this game. And he's played well at times, and he definitely gives the effort, which is good to see. But, yeah, nobody has filled into that, like, leading point guard role the way you needed him to. Because, again, that's what we always praised Talon Cooper for from that tournament season was how well he played that position and quarterbacked the offense. And you just haven't been able to have anybody play that role since.
803-404-6100. We'll come back. Is Tiger Woods still an attraction? Tyler and I will debate that for a second, and then in hour number 3, we will get back into a little bit of basketball. You're listening to the Halftime Show.
All right, final thing with you in regards to your recovery. Is the Masters off the table for you?
No.
No. Those are the words of Tiger Woods.
Followed with a smile.
Followed with a smile. Who, is it news? I don't know. I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because I don't know the relevance. Tiger Woods is always going to be relevant, Tyler.
Sure.
Anything he does, his son's committing to Florida State. I think I saw a report also that maybe his son signed with an agency. Who knows? Like, he's always going to be relevant. But
that surprise you? No.
No. I mean,
his son's going to be the most popular college golfer ever.
His son is the number 21st ranked, whatever it is, U.S.
Yeah, he's not number 1 overall, but he's high enough. Hey, you're going to look at scorecards for Florida State golf next year. Like, you're going to do that. You've never done that before in your life. You're going to do that because of his kid.
I'm a weird person. Well, I think he's 2027.
Or 2027.
He's coming down the pipe. But, yeah, and I said this, I think the day you were out, Charlie Woods is about to be rammed down our throat for years.
PGA needs a new superstar. He has the potential to be that.
They do. Well,
whether he wants to be or not, they're going to try.
Well, to go back, so I don't want to say, like, to the average golf, but, I mean, you would say that you're kind of a niche golf fan.
Yeah. No, I pay attention to the majors, and, again, now that we're doing this show together, I've been in on more of the other tournaments a little bit more to start this year. I enjoy it. I enjoy golf. I always love the Masters and all that kind of stuff. But I've paid attention to it more this year at the beginning of the year than I have in years past.
So I got to admit, to me, I don't think he's an attraction anymore. I don't like if Tiger's in the field. Now, you brought up an interesting, I think you said it on air.
Yeah.
That, because of your age, you didn't see the great Tiger Woods like I did.
Well, I didn't understand it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
All
Like, I knew as a kid, and again, I was born in 96, so growing up in the 2000s, Tiger Woods was everywhere. He had his own video games, had his own flavor of Gatorade. Like, I knew Tiger Woods was great. I knew Tiger Woods was a great golfer, and I could see it on TV, but I didn't fully understand how historic what he was doing was. Obviously, he has his scandals and injuries and all that kind of stuff, and really falls off for the better part of a decade. And I will always say, watching him win the 2019 Masters is a top sports moment of all time for me, because it kind of came out of nowhere. And it was seeing him return to that form that somebody like you would watch back in the late 90s and early 2000s. But I was getting to experience it with a full understanding for the first time, which was really cool.
I remember when he won the Masters, I put out a tweet, and I feel like it was one of my better tweets I've ever put out. But I remember putting out a tweet, and it just basically was like, hey, kids, gather around and let me tell you the story of this guy. Again, 140 characters, so I'm not going verbatim. But it was basically the fact of, let me tell you about this guy named Tiger Woods and the greatness. Oh, wait, just turn the TV on and you see it.
Yes.
And hand on the Bible, I'll be honest with y'all. I like being honest. I cried. When he won, I cried. It was like, you're right, because I'll admit, in the 2000s, as he was dominating so much, I didn't really like him.
Yeah.
Like, it was, he was just, he dominated everything. I didn't celebrate his downfall. I do remember going to the Masters when he came back, like that Thursday. I think I was down there with Kevin McCrary, and we were down there for that. But I remember being down there for that in his first Masters back after the wife car incident and everything. But with that being said, I never pulled against him. But seeing him return and kind of become a different figure, I thought was really cool. It was emotional. It was emotional because of what he did. I look at it now. He's broken, physically broken.
Yeah, his body's been through a lot, and it's remarkable that he's still able to go out there and play. That in and of itself is an accomplishment. But yeah, I don't think anybody looks at him as like, oh, hey, he's coming back. Watch out, he's going to go for another jacket. You know what I mean? Like, he'd kind of be there to be there type thing.
See, and Jacob says Tiger's still an attraction and moves the needle. I would rather watch him eat a Snickers walking down the fairway than watch Scheffler hit a shot. And we're all entitled to our opinion. I don't agree with that.
All right, so how do we define what attraction is? Like, where do you put, like, all right, this is what an attraction brings?
Are you the casual fan tuning in to watch?
So you don't think more people would watch because Tiger is playing in the Masters? If Tiger plays in the Masters this year,
I don't know if he still does that. Yeah, I don't know.
I think he would. I don't know what the Masters ratings were last year, but I guarantee, at least until he was like cut or something like that, you'd probably see an uptick in viewership just because he's playing.
That's why I wonder about it. I don't know if he still has, because here's the thing, you can still catch him play a little bit on that TGL.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
He's got his own team, right?
Yeah. I think that was the Jupiter Golf Links is his team. But so you can still see him play a little bit.
That's different.
It is massively different. But it just, I don't know. I think there, and I don't know if watching him now pains me. I don't know. It's almost uncomfortable because I get it. I've watched enough Kobe Bryant. Tiger's not Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant in the way that he talks. Like Instagram, I'll be scrolling, and Kobe Bryant would do these interviews, and he talks about his competitive spirit and how he wanted to, like, kill his opponent. It wasn't, I'm buddy with you.
Yeah.
They've got the video. Have you ever seen the video of him talking about how he ran through Paul Gasol's chest?
Yeah. He was the ultimate competitor that wanted to win worse than anything else in the entire world.
And those guys hate losing. And I say that because Tiger's never had those kind of interviews, but I know it pains him to go out and to not be able to do what you did 20 years ago. And it's got to drive him crazy. I mean, Tyler, your situation, shoot, I'm 43 now. Mm-hmm. Like, I was a good athlete in my 20s.
Yeah.
And there was things I could do then that now, if I try to go out and play basketball, mentally I'm trying to do it. My body's going, no, sir, you don't do that anymore.
And I think there's also an element of the nostalgia factor, too, that, you would tune in knowing he's probably not going to win or, heck, even make the cut. But just like the memories of watching him from years past when he was at the height of his dominance, like you kind of get to relive that a little bit if you see him out there coming up in a couple months in Augusta.
Texter writes in, same thing I'd said for a long time, and it ended up coming true. I don't get many predictions right, but Texter says, especially at Augusta National, you can win there or at least be competitive into your 40s, early 50s. Jack won at 46. I agree with that because it's the same course and he's used to it.
Sure.
All right, we'll get back into a few other topics. I do want to get into Jerome Tang as well and what coaches can and can't say. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing, where for over 30 years, Mid-State Roofing has been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. And the reason they've been the leader is because of their customer service. You heard that right. That customer service of theirs is absolutely second to none. From high-rises to hospitals, manufacturing to industrial, Mid-State Roofing designs and installs bonded systems with a protective guarantee that keeps your operation dry and running long into the future. And the best part, they are there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because if a leak happens at midnight, that doesn't mean you got to need to wait till 8 a.m. You can call Mid-State Roofing right then, and they'll have an on-call technician ready to help you. 803-356-1919, or you can visit them on the web, midstateroofing.com. Again, that's 803-356-1919. Call them today and tell them Bill Gunner sent you. the 2 o'clock hour on a Wednesday. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave Adair. I thought about it in the break. What is an attraction? Like in NASCAR,
Yeah.
if you told me Dale Earnhardt Jr. Was coming back to drive a race, I'd be like, okay, I'll tune in to see what happens.
It's actually funny you mentioned that because he did
What?
not say that. He did entertain the possibility of running next year's Daytona 500.
Yeah, like I would be like, okay, I'm tuning in.
Sure.
Not that I'm trying to think of something that, like, I've gotten into watching NASCAR, but, like, okay, what would draw
Yeah, the casual fan
maybe a little more
in
into
a little bit
it?
more. And again, I think Tiger still does that, whether you think he's going to be competitive or not, because of the, use a word the kids like to use, the aura around him is still a thing. Like, people would, look, he could be in, I don't know, 40th place, and there are going to be more people gravitating towards his hole during whatever round of the Masters because it's Tiger Woods. So you can be able to say, whether it was him in his prime or him at the back end of his career, hey, I saw Tiger Woods with my own eyes play golf. Like, that's still a thing.
Well, now that's different. If you're at the tournament, I get that. I'm talking about tuning in on the television. Like, are you, for example, I think what the Masters will be on ESPN on Thursday and Friday. It'll be however they do it. Like, are you like, okay, I'm watching because Tiger Woods is on. I want to see how this guy looks.
I think the casual fan is more likely to tune in knowing that Tiger Woods is playing, because I think a lot of people, they'll keep up with it, but really kind of lock in when you get the final round, you know, back nine and all that kind of stuff to see who's ultimately going to win. But especially if you know that Tiger is not guaranteed to make the cut, then you say, okay, well, if I'm going to see him, it's going to have to be early on in the week and see how he does. So, yeah, I think your opportunity to watch him moves up to earlier on the first couple rounds.
I feel like a golf snob now. I feel like my problem is I'm paying more attention to the guys who have it. I'm not saying Tiger doesn't have a chance to win, but
And by the way, the PGA Tour would love to see Tiger Woods at the Masters.
I do agree with. Well, I don't know about the PGA Tour since they don't really have an investment in the Masters, but I can guarantee you Augusta National.
Yes.
would love to have
the TV
him.
partners would love to see him back at the Masters again.
I think you're probably right. CBS 803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in if you want to do so. Last night, South Carolina goes up to Spartanburg to Fifth Third Stadium, their home of the Hub City Spartanburgers. By the way, y'all, we had some people complain earlier about the stadium. Some people said there was weeds in there and all this and the all kinds of problems. I think was it Ray called earlier. If you're called the Spartanburgers, I want to know. Do they have they better have like a burger? Because this is baseball. Baseball is a foodie sport, right?
Especially minor league baseball.
Yes. Do they have a specialty burger? I want a specialty burger if you're at the Spartan Burgers. Chase, by the way, weighs in and says the ballpark in Spartanburg was fine. The grass was dead, great atmosphere and crowd, and only makes sense to play more games there in the future, possibly play Clemson there instead of Greenville one day. So Chase, a fan of it. But, yeah, if it's the Spartan Burgers, it better have a specialty like in park hamburger that is made. You know.
Okay, so I found an article from minorleaguebaseball.com. A culinary experience, a burger topping bar with a draw dropping 101 different toppings.
Beautiful.
Have endless ways to mix and match their accoutrements for Spartan burgers. So. I don't know if they have a signature burger, but they give you the opportunity to put anything imaginable on a burger at the park.
You know what? Not exactly what I would draw up, but it's a start, and I'll take it. So, yeah, that's the beautiful thing. Does Segra, I got to admit, I don't know. Does Segra have anything that makes it pop, that makes it stand out? It's a beautiful park. It's in a great area. I'm trying to think. They have like
the signature,
like an ice cream type sundae or a 7-foot corn dog or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that really stands out. When I've been, I just have the standard hot dog, hamburger, fries, chicken tenders, pretzels, that kind of stuff. There's probably something that I'm forgetting about, but I can't recall a signature item off the top of my head.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, anyway, South Carolina. By the way, South Carolina will play, according to the game notes, 3 more games at minor league stadiums this year. They will obviously play Clemson at Segra Park. They will play, I believe it was College of Charleston. Play the Citadel at Riley Park, which is home of the River Dogs. And then they'll play at the Charlotte Knights Stadium, which is Truist Field, against North Carolina on March 24th. So if you're a Gamecock fan and you want to get out and about, good news, you can see some minor league parks as well. But last night they win. And after the game, Paul Mainieri talking a little bit. And one of the things he talked about, Captain Dave, clip number 7, was getting 5 innings from his starting pitching. And here's what he had to say about starting pitching last night and getting through the first 5 innings.
I honestly, Jack, I was kind of tempted to let him go another inning. He was only at 62 or 3 pitches. But we've been kind of drawing the line at 70 pitches. And I want to bring in somebody in a jam. I just wanted to give somebody a clean inning to start with. And, Foster struggled a little bit right out of the gate with his command, but then he regrouped and was able to, get the zone. He got a big double play ball and giving us 5. I didn't want to get greedy. Ciccoli did a great job giving us 5. So, it was time to turn the page. And it's a good confidence builder for him as well. I wanted it to finish on a positive note.
Real quick, I love that we're back in baseball season because we get the on-field pressers with just music blaring in the background. You can at least hear Mainieri there.
Yeah.
Kingston was really bad about still talking very softly while that kind of stuff was playing, but he's right. And that was one of his things going into the weekend that he talked about, was making sure you get decent length out of your starters. And he looked at everybody kind of around 70 pitches going into the weekend, and most of those guys kind of hit that mark. And same thing with Ciccoli last night. So you're 4 games in, you haven't had to ask more of your bullpen than you were expecting to, which is obviously good, especially considering the fact that you have so many games crammed into this first 2-week stretch.
Here is Paul Mainieri also last night. South Carolina last night started a stretch of 5 games in 6 days. Last night they played a day, by the way, at 4 o'clock. Again, real quick reminder, we will carry you. Tyler, Captain Dave will carry you up to 3 o'clock. Terry Ford will step in and get you to about 3:40, and then we'll switch over to the pregame show with Cade Crenshaw and Stuart Lake coming up. South Carolina and Gardner-Webb right here on 107.5 The Game coming up at 4 o'clock today. So there's your kind of schedule for the rest of the afternoon. Again, Tyler, Captain Dave will get you through till 3, and then Terry Ford with an abbreviated show till 3:40, and then it'll be time for Cade Crenshaw and Stuart Lake to carry you home with some baseball this afternoon. But then you get the series this weekend, Navy, Army, and then Air Force. I can't remember if I got that Navy Army set right. I can't remember if it's Army Navy or Navy Army, and then it's Air Force on Sunday. But the bottom line is 5 games in 6 days, and here is Paul Mainieri last night talking a little bit about managing his team with a 5-game week.
We got a couple of different guys will play tomorrow night again. I don't know what I'm going to do with the catching. I wanted to catch more tomorrow night, but he's had that off season or last fall knee surgery, and he fortunately got to run the bases a lot today, and I think it was a little bit sore, so I'm not sure I'll be able to catch him tomorrow. So I don't know if it'll be Talmadge or if it'll be Gavin Braylon. I'll think about it during the drive home. But yeah, 5 games in 6 days, a lot of baseball, particularly on your pitching staff. So I thought our pitching staff really did another great job, not just Ciccoli, but the guys coming in out of the bullpen did a good job and saved a couple of guys for us for tomorrow night. Hopefully we'll have enough to get through tomorrow night.
So he's got a plan. Look, again, and I'm going to play one more clip here in just a minute. I don't want to say like last year I didn't like listening to it, but maybe I zoned out halfway through. I'm not sure. I'm not real sure how you would want to define it. But at least listening to Paul Mainieri, we're getting an explanation of what he's seeing and how he's feeling.
Yeah.
There's no sugarcoating of things right now from him. And I don't know, last year he turned a lot of people off very quickly with his comments about the Clemson series.
Sure.
And that might have been a downhill snowball that started pretty quickly for that. His comments Saturday about, they were tired, we didn't take batting practice, they rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But then last night he talked about his team's energy, and he came back and he talked about the next few days, and he kind of he circled back to his comments Saturday. Here's what he kind of revisited about those comments about his team being tired Saturday for that ball game at Founders Park.
Well, I told them, we're going to enjoy this drive home, and then we're going to turn the page. I'm not making excuses for them anymore. It's not going to be because they're tired. We need to go out tomorrow night and play with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. I was just really, I was disappointed. We had such a nice crowd at the game Saturday, and they were just waiting to have fun and explode, and we just never gave them a reason to. And I never use the word embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed because, it just happens sometimes. But we got to get some adrenaline and realize that each day is a new day. And we didn't turn the page quickly enough from last Friday night to Saturday. And I'm pretty confident that tomorrow will be different.
Is that fair? I mean, is that we're about to talk about Jerome Tang and talking about players and everything.
I think that's fair. I don't think, and even go back to his comments on Saturday, I don't feel like it was. I don't think anything he said was egregious. It can come across a little bit as throwing your team under the bus, but he was being honest, like you said, maybe more honest than some people, maybe want him to be. But you could clearly see that there was a lack of energy and a lack of drive with that team on Saturday, and it resonated with the way they played the game and ultimately the way that they lost the game. And I'm sure there were louder conversations had behind closed doors afterwards that maybe struck some fear in some guys. But like you said, he is being honest, maybe sometimes to his own detriment, but he's kind of calling it how he sees it. And again, it kind of lines up with what we've seen so far.
Well, again, he right now, as we sit here 4 games in, and in just a couple days, 5 days in, I think, 6 days in, he believes in his team. He believes he's put together. They went out, and they went to the transfer portal, and they got a bunch of new players, Tyler. And, this is a similar conversation that we had on air back in, I believe, October with Lamont Paris. And Lamont Paris, hey, we're built around shooting. I like what I got.
Yeah.
And you believe in your team. You believe in what you've put together. I don't think any coach puts together a team now and goes, I don't know if I did a good job of doing that. Paul Mainieri likes his team. And so I think I like the fact that he's willing to say, hey, they didn't come out ready to play. They didn't take it as seriously as I need them to. Now, some of that's on Paul Mainieri. You got to find a way to motivate you. But also, this day and age, it's on the players. They've got to show up to the ballpark ready to play. Being tired is not an excuse.
I think it's a way of not shaming them, but publicly putting it out there like, hey, I know what these guys are capable of. They didn't show that in this game, and let's hope that's fixed going forward. Again, concerning to hear that 18 to 22-year-olds were gassed after playing one doubleheader, because you're going to run into plenty more of those situations likely as the season goes along, and hopefully that was an anomaly and not necessarily what's going to be happening each and every time. And I think tonight's going to be very important to see, like, all right, you played a game last night on the road. You had to travel back. Where you at energy-wise? Because if they come out tonight and look lethargic again, I think we start saying, okay, this might be a consistent problem this entire year, as opposed to if they go out there and dominate again tonight, win pretty comfortably, saying, okay, well, maybe that was just a one weekend, one game thing that we don't have to worry about as much.
Well, here's the thing. We had Trey Dyson on earlier, and you can hear his segment there. Captain Dave's got it up on our podcast page. I'm more concerned about what Trey talked about with the pitching and South Carolina struggling with the hitting than I am with them being tired, if you will, for the game and being lethargic. That, I think, is fixable. The hitting thing, that's kind of a carryover from last year and is something that I'd pay a little more attention to.
Yeah, and that's why we're reacting to this the way that we are, because with how much change you had in the offseason, through the first 3 games over the weekend against Northern Kentucky, you didn't see anything from a hitting standpoint that made you say, wow, that looks a whole lot better. It looked very similar to what you had a year ago. You couple that in with the comments about being lethargic and all that kind of stuff, and we're suddenly hitting the panic button saying, oh, no, what's wrong here? Now, again, there's a lot of baseball to be played. Team can always get better. Team can continue to improve. And, again, I think we're looking at all these games now waiting to see those kind of things become new trends.
803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in. So I'm interested. You heard Paul Mainieri talk about his team, and he didn't throw him under the bus by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. I think he was honest, and I like that. We'll go back and revisit. Jerome Tang had some things to say about his team. He's now unemployed, and him and Kansas State are heading for a very messy divorce.
Yep.
But also the way he handled the situation and the way he got fired, would coaches be a little bit more wary of going to Kansas State if you can't speak freely about your team in the manner that Jerome Tang did? Did he say anything that was inappropriate? We'll talk about that next. You're listening to The Halftime Show. 2:20 on a Wednesday afternoon. Bill Gunner, Tyler Head, Captain Dave Adair as we roll along. Again, thank you to Trey Dyson for joining us an hour ago. If you've missed that segment and any music you might have missed, you can go back to our webpage, 1075thegame.com. Click on the halftime show, and Captain Dave does a phenomenal job of getting up our segments, including our interview with Trey Dyson, and you can hear what Mr. Dyson had to say about the South Carolina baseball program and his takeaway from the first 4 games. One of those takeaways has been what Paul Maneri had to say, and wasn't anything bad, but couple that with everything else going on, and I think the question becomes, what do you want out of your coaches in terms of honesty and press conference and handling players and discussing issues, Tyler?
Well, I want them to be able to feel like they can be truthful. Now, again, I don't go down the path of personal attacks or, that kind of stuff. But if it's in reference to what a guy does or girl does on the court or diamond or field or whatever it may be, I think that's fair game. Some coaches can be a little more harsh than others, but we're in an era now where these players, because I feel like in the prior era of college sports, there was a hesitancy to be too critical on players. Hey, they're student athletes. They're just here for a scholarship. They're not making money. Tread lightly when it comes to open criticism. Where now a lot of these guys and girls are getting paid more than the assistant coaches, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're a professional athlete, and if you're getting paid a lot of money especially, you're subject to criticism if you're not going out there and performing your job to the standard of what your salary suggests it should be performed. And again, this Jerome Tane thing is very silly with what Kansas State is trying to do, but it's going to be very pivotal in terms of how coaches talk about their teams going forward, I feel like, depending on how this shakes out.
Now, granted, this is not anything new. It's been around in the NFL for a long time where the starting quarterback or maybe a particular player makes more than their position coach. But
yes,
as you just kind of mentioned, just think about this. The second highest paid person for the University of South Carolina football team is Lenore Sellers, if you're to believe the numbers are correct.
Yes.
Shane Beamer at around $6 million, maybe $8 million. I can't remember what his contract is off the top of my head.
If you added up most of the assistants, they don't equal up to what Lenore Sellers is making on his own.
So, to your point, it does open the door to be maybe a little bit more critical. But my question is this too critical? Or are you okay with this? This is Jerome Tang, now former coach at Kansas State. This is supposedly what got him fired. Now, we played this clip, I believe, yesterday, maybe yesterday. We weren't here Monday. But if you didn't hear it, Jerome Tang has been fired by Kansas State because, according to Kansas State, he embarrassed the university. Now, quite frankly, you can read between the lines. Kansas State is trying to fire him with calls to not pay him $18.5 million.
Correct.
All right. They're trying to get out of this all they can. But are you okay with this level of honesty, this level of intensity from your head coach describing his players?
This was embarrassing. These dudes do not deserve to wear this uniform. There will be very few of them in it next year. I'm embarrassed for the university. I'm embarrassed for our fans, our student section. It is just ridiculous. We got practice at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, and we will get this thing right. I have no answer, no words. So y'all got 2 questions. So whoever want to ask 2 questions, I'll answer them to the best of my ability right now. But right now, I'm pissed.
The only problem I have with that, there's only one problem. There is a problem with it, and I only have one of them. All right, to me, there's only one, and that's that he only took 2 questions. You need to open the door for more. You want to have your rant like that, open the door. Tyler, my personal opinion is I think it's great.
Sure.
I think it's great. And the concern is not the university or anything else. My concern would be the blowback from the players. Have you upset the players? Kansas State, for the record, when that occurred, they were beaten 91-62 by Cincinnati at home.
Yep.
I forget the name of that arena. But 91-62 last Wednesday, a week ago today, Cincinnati went in and beat them. So what is that? That's almost a 29-point loss at home.
Yep.
That's what led to Jerome Tang having that comment. That's fair. What he said is fair.
I think it's also important to point out he talked about the team in a general sense. He did not specifically go down the path of attacking one player, like, their best player, PJ Haggerty. If he goes out there and says he's a disgrace, he doesn't deserve to wear this uniform, he's an embarrassment to the university, I can't believe we're paying him however many hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in NIL, that's where you're starting to tread that line a little bit. But he talked about the team as a whole, and he talked about them in a general sense. And yeah, if he sticks around, a lot of those guys probably do transfer. A lot of those guys do end up in other places, maybe not purely based on those comments, but Jerome Tang's going to go out there and change things up in the offseason. So I think when you avoid singling out specific people and talking about the team as a whole, I think that's fine. Now, you can single out people and be critical of them as well. There's a different little bit of a fine line with that, certainly, on what comments you make and how you make them, but I didn't have a problem with anything that he said specifically.
Kansas State did. Now they fire him. The question is because Kansas State fired him, the next question is, do other coaches, you think, look at Kansas State and be like, oh, I don't have freedom of speech to do what I want to say or say what I want to do? Look, I go back. Frank Martin, in one of his, I think it was his first or second year, and I don't know if y'all remember this, and I loved Frank, and I really had no problem, this is a whole other discussion, with how Frank talked and treated his players, because I know how much he loved them, and I know how much they ended up loving him back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, for everybody that's like, oh, he was mean to him. Trust me, those kids love Frank Martin. I know for a fact Sindarius Thornwell sees him as a father figure. Dwayne Notice, those guys love him. And Dwayne Notice, boy, caught it on the chin from Frank a couple times. But the bottom line is they all understood each other. With that being said, there was a game early in Frank's career. They lost to LSU badly at home, similar to this, 25, 30-point loss. This is when LSU was actually pretty good in about 2010, 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. And he basically accused his team of being characters in zombies in The Walking Dead, and basically said that, I forget I wish I could go back and pull that clip.
Yeah.
But he basically was like, they're zombies. They don't want to be here. They walk around, and he ripped his team a new one.
Yeah.
Nobody said a word about it. Do you think that this alters how coaches would want to go and be a part of Kansas State?
I think if you're going to be the Kansas State coach, you're going to go over that contract with more of a fine-tooth comb. And look, I don't know how many, I imagine a lot of these coaching contracts have the same clauses built in that Tang has, because there's 3 different clauses they're trying to enforce in reference to not embarrassing the university, not embarrassing players, talking about things in a general sense, and all that kind of stuff. I think those things get paid attention to a lot more closely now. So, and again, this is assuming that Kansas State's going to win the court case, which I don't think that they will, but I still think a lot of coaches out there, especially if they're going to go to Kansas State, be like, hey, we're going to sit down and talk about what these little clauses mean and what grounds you have to fire me if I'm critical of my team.
Yeah, it's so, because here's the other part of this. A lot of people get mad with Shane Beamer, and I'm not picking on Shane. I'm just using him as an example. Sorry that you're being used as an example, Coach. Shane is well known as being a protector of his program, if you will, of his players. I've seen a lot of people. We've had people call into the show after losses, in particular this year, being, I want him to be more angry with his players. I want him to call players out. And so you've got a guy like Jerome Tang who does this, and the administration, now granted, again, they're looking for a reason to fire him, and they want to pay $18 million. But how do you feel about it as a fan, is my question. I think most fans would side, be like, as one text always and says, I do not see a problem with it.
Yeah, I don't either. And again, when you're talking about guys that are making money now to play this sport or whatever sport we're talking about, that opens up more criticism, because you're being paid a high dollar value to do a task. And if you're not doing that task well, like any of us in our jobs, if you're not doing your job well, you're subject to criticism. That's how it works.
I wait for the day that a coach calls into a sports talk radio show. I'm just going to use it. Shane from Columbia, you're on the line. And Shane from Columbia goes off on his quarterback and is like, we got to get a new guy in here or something.
Yeah. It's weird. That voice sounds familiar.
We'll see how it all kind of plays out. Then you got Mick Cronin last night. We cannot play the audio from that. Mick Cronin was asked about the ISON, the student section, and Mick Cronin decided to pick a fight with a journalist from UCLA last night. I don't know how to properly address the story because we can't play the audio and it's hard to explain it, Tyler, but go back and watch it for yourself and you decide, is Mick Cronin a good guy that you would want leading your program? 803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling along with the college football playoff, and Brett McMurphy has some bowl projections out. I don't think you're going to like it at all. We'll tell you about it. It's the Halftime Show. Brett McMurphy has some bowl projections out. We'll get to those in just a second. But during the break, I stumbled across a tweet from, I believe it's from Sports Illustrated, the Georgia kind of fan site for Sports Illustrated. Tyler, do you, we're all cell phone people. How do you operate your cell phone? Do you put it on DND? Do you keep it on vibrate the majority of the time? Do you put it on ring? Do you have that thing that, like, notifications are silenced? How do you go about handling that?
I put it on Do Not Disturb when I'm here because I don't want it to go off during a show. But
you put it on Do Not Disturb, or you just put it on vibrate?
I put it on vibrate. I put it on vibrate because I don't want it to go off and make noise during the show. But typically, as soon as the show's over, I put my ringer back on and proceed like that through the rest of my day.
Okay, so you're a ringer guy. You're that ringer aside from here.
Yes.
Obviously, as we're doing the show, you have the ringer off. Captain Dave, how about you? You're a cell phone guy. I saw you taking a selfie out there a little while ago. Are you a ringer guy or a vibrate guy, or do you do not disturb? How does that work for you?
I do not answer any phone call. I don't need to change my Medicare plan. I don't need a car. Warranty extension. I don't need, we have a loan for $200,000 for you. Just click here. I don't need any of that stuff, so I don't answer unless I know.
Okay.
What about important information regarding your tax returns, Dave? What about those phone calls?
Or the ones that I get all the time about we can stop the IRS from, they don't hassle me because I don't know anything.
Here's my favorite one. It comes in as a text message about like, hey, we lost your Amazon delivery. Click on this link to resolve the issue. And you're like, I didn't order anything from Amazon. And the number is like Z9412Q11.
Okay. All right. So real quick, Dave, you keep your phone on ring. You do get those phone calls. You just don't answer them, or your phone's on vibrate and you might miss a phone call or two.
I might miss a phone call or 12.
Okay, so you might not be around your phone, and you might, like, legitimately, if I'm trying to call you, I need something, and you don't answer, you're not glued to your phone, or it's not on ring where you can hear it.
I get calls for someone named Audrey to pick up her kids at daycare, and I've had this number for 4 years, so I don't know.
Okay, so you
I hope they eventually find the real Audrey.
Really.
I hope the kids haven't been in daycare for 4 straight years. All right, why do I bring all this up? By the way, I'm a ring person. Like, I had an incident in life that's not good. I won't tell it on air, and I missed some really important phone calls, family oriented, and after that, I learned a very valuable lesson. So my phone is on 24 hours, except for now when I'm staring at it during the radio show, but 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's on ring in the event that somebody needs me. And if you have my cell phone number, that goes for you too. If you don't have my cell phone number, I'm not passing it out. But this is an interesting story. If Georgia had Fernando Mendoza this year, does Georgia win the national championship? If Indiana doesn't have Fernando Mendoza this year, does Indiana win the national championship? Here's the story. This is off of an interview Fernando Mendoza did with something called The Ticket. I don't know what exactly that is, but I did not know this, and I'm skeptical of some of this. I had to read this twice during the break because with Gunnar Stockton at the helm, I was a little surprised that Kirby was playing fast and loose with a starting quarterback job. But apparently, Fernando Mendoza came down in his recruiting decision last year to Georgia and Indiana. Fernando Mendoza made the decision he wanted to go to Athens and play for Kirby Smart. He decided that that's who he wanted to play. This is an article in Sports Illustrated. Mendoza says, and this is actually from the interview on The Ticket, Mendoza says, really, it came down to Indiana and Georgia. Kirby Smart was a great recruiter, great coach, and great program. They were this close to making a national championship. I was really going back and forth between the two, and honestly, I was really confused. I was lost in the sauce because they were both great situations. It was a win-win. It was really tough. Mendoza went on to say that at one point he tried to call Kirby Smart to commit. The phone call did not. Now, it says did not go through. Now, does that mean that, like, the phone carrier didn't get the phone call to the cell phone and it never rang on Kirby? Or did Kirby was he out doing something else and missed the phone call? But Mendoza goes on to say, I called Kirby to commit to Georgia, and the call didn't go through. And I thought, all right, let me sleep on it tonight. I really believe God helped me with that.
Yeah. As somebody that saw Kirby at non-football events when I was back in school, him not having his phone in his hand would be very surprising. He used to go to the basketball games with his kids a lot. You'd see him down there, sitting on the lower level or whatever, and like his kids are having a good time. They're jumping up and down for the camera, and he is quite literally locked in on his phone the entire game. He looks up occasionally, but he's texting, he's calling, FaceTime. That man was never not on his phone. And I have other people I know within the Georgia program that can confirm that at other places too. He is always on his phone. Perhaps he was in an area with no signal, and that's why this call didn't go through. But I doubt that he would have just thrown it to the side, especially if he anticipated a call like that could have been coming. It's interesting this gets brought up because around the springtime last year, I was, according to people that I trust within that circle, hearing things about Georgia really pursuing Fernando Mendoza at quarterback, and I never heard what happened. Obviously, I heard he goes to Indiana, but I didn't know why things fell through with Georgia. Obviously, things ended up working out fine with Gunnar Stockton. I think he did a really good job in his first year as a starter, but they seemed very content on bringing in Fernando Mendoza. I didn't know what happened until now.
Yeah, this is a funny, if you're not a Georgia fan, and you're an Indiana fan, this is a great and funny story. But yeah, so apparently Georgia could have had Fernando Mendoza. Now, does that lead to a national championship? Does he get the same kind of coaching from Mike Bobo that he gets from Kirk Cignetti? Is everything the same? Who knows what happens with Gunnar? You talk about like the butterfly effect that Preston Thorne would talk about a lot.
Sure.
And it is funny to think like, what exactly would have been the butterfly effect of Fernando Mendoza going to Georgia? Does Gunnar Stockton stay? Who does Indiana go and get? How does that impact the portal? How does that change things? Like these odd little things right now are what occurs in college football, and it's something it can be so minuscule that we don't think of at the moment that turns out to be really big. I don't think Georgia with Fernando Mendoza wins the national championship. I don't think he just fit.
Mm-hmm.
But I could be wrong on that. And then I don't know who Indiana was who else Indiana was in on that they would have then gone and have gotten.
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, hindsight being 2020, we're obviously never going to know. But I'd be willing to bet Kirby had to have been somewhere where he just didn't have a signal. And again, if the call doesn't go through, that's kind of what that suggests. But yeah, he's always on his phone, and to my knowledge, rarely misses calls or texts, especially ones that could have been as important as that one. But yeah, it's funny how those things work, and obviously it ended up working out for Fernando Mendoza in Indiana, and the rest is history.
Always have your phone on, folks. You never know what phone call you might be about to receive and that you need to take. 803-404-6100. We'll come back and wrap up the show. Brett McMurphy again. He has predicted the playoffs for next year, and he has predicted the bowl game. Yes, he did predict South Carolina to go to a bowl game, but what bowl? And how angry would you be with this scenario? Trust me, I've seen the text, Tyler. You're not going to be happy with where he projects South Carolina. We'll tell you that when we come back. It's the Halftime Show. Bowl games are falling off, by the way. You seen this? We got 3.
Yeah, we're losing bowl games. Yeah, we're losing bowl games, man. The coveted Xbox Bowl is gone as soon as it got here, it feels like.
Xbox Bowl, which one was that?
That was a new one.
Okay.
So that was one that our buddy Ryan Beard got Missouri State to this past year, and they did the thing with the achievement, like, MVP trophy, which I thought was cool.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was neat. But yeah, I think that one's kind of over as soon as it arrived. Bahamas Bowl's been gone.
Boca Raton is it Boca Raton? Now you got me confused on Boca Raton or Bahamas. I know it was somewhere warm that I would want to be for bowl season.
Hold on, I have the list here.
One of those. I thought it was Boca Raton Bowl. No, you're right. Bahamas Bowl, and then the Detroit Bowl used to be the Little Caesars. Yeah. I don't know what it was this past year. Quick Lane Bowl. That was actually a long running bowl game too.
Yeah, that one's been around for a long time. Usually had like a MAC team and a team from Conference USA or whatever. The LA Bowl.
Yeah. So is that 4?
That's 4. That's gone through. What is the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl? Then it was the Gronk Bowl, and it was somebody else this past year. I forget who it was, but yeah, that was kind of. I don't think that was well attended anyway.
Nah.
So yeah, we're actually losing a couple bowl games this year.
Well, Brett McMurphy is firing away. I always like Brett McMurphy. I think he puts out great content. He has put out his own. Since we're mid-February, now it's just the way too early college football playoff and bowl projections. I'll get to South Carolina's bowl projection in just a second, but let me give you the playoff spoiler alert. South Carolina nor Clemson are in his playoff. His first round, December 18th and 19th, is Texas San Antonio against Texas. Utah, with their new coach, back in against Oregon. Oklahoma, back for a second year with John Mateer at quarterback against Texas Tech. And Marcel Reed and Texas A&M making a repeat appearance, but traveling to number 7 Indiana. How do you feel about those 4 matchups for a second?
Based on what I think I know about these teams right now, it sounds pretty good. UTSA is the G5 representative, feels like a choice that's been pretty popular the past couple of years. Jeff Traylor, since they moved to Conference USA, hasn't been as good as he was, or excuse me, since they moved to the American, hasn't been as good as he was in Conference USA, so we'll see if that upticks this upcoming year. But, I mean, yeah, all those other ones outside of maybe Utah, now that they moved on from Kyle Whittingham, I think are kind of the expected teams to be around that mark of making it in the playoff. Again, Texas is always going to have a great roster. I even would say Oregon being at 8 is probably a little disappointing for them being that low, because that means you're probably not even playing for the Big Ten championship this year. And obviously they have high expectations for that every single year. But I think that's a pretty fair right now guess of what the first round could look like.
You might have Oregon playing for it, but losing and dropping back behind Indiana. Indiana 7, Oregon 8. That's what you're saying. Let me give you those. That's 5 through 12. Again, Texas San Antonio against Texas, 12-5. 9-8 is Utah, Oregon. 11-6 is Oklahoma at Texas Tech. And 10-7 is Texas A&M at Indiana. Those would all actually, I'd be happy to consume those right before Christmas for the college football playoff. His top 4 seeds getting the bye. Again, way too early projections. Number 1, Notre Dame. Okay. Number 2, the aforementioned Georgia Bulldogs with Gunnar Stockton. Number 3, Ohio State and Julius Sayin. And number 4, he's got Darian Mensah in Miami as his top 4. You going with that?
Yeah.
I mean, way too early February.
Yeah, I could see how you could get there now. Like Notre Dame's schedule is workable with the exception of like Miami and BYU. They play both those teams in the back half of the season, so those are going to be really critical games. I imagine that game between Notre Dame and Miami in his mind may be like number 1 versus number 2 if we're going with both these teams ended up being top 4 overall seeds. But it's hard to argue with that because, again, we don't know necessarily how good these teams are going to be once the season gets here. But those are 4 teams that I think on a year-in-year basis most people are going to assume to be pretty good. Obviously, Notre Dame misses the playoffs this past year and Miami gets in and goes on the run that they go on. So, yeah, I think it's reasonable to assume they should all be kind of in that mix once again. And for Notre Dame to be number 1, they'd have to go 12-0. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't have to have no blemishes on the resume. They obviously don't play a conference championship game. And you want to talk about an extended layoff because they wouldn't play conference championship weekend, so they'd go from the weekend after Thanksgiving all the way to, he's saying, December 30th in the Fiesta Bowl between games, a full month.
Yeah, you get the full month off on that. I'd have to go back and look at their schedule to see what exactly it looks like. Do they make a trip to Texas? Because I just say that what you're saying, I could see them having one loss. I could see it. I'm not saying it, but if they had one loss, if
the only games of consequence at BYU, Miami. I don't see any others that really stand out to me. Like SMU could be tricky late.
Wow, you really put down Wisconsin, huh?
Yeah, I'm not high in Wisconsin. But yeah, those only kind of seem like the tougher games of their schedule.
Also, quite the shot at you North Carolina fans. Notre Dame plays at North Carolina October 3rd, and apparently Tyler Head has no belief in Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels. So anyway, there's Notre Dame. So that's your playoff rankings that he's got there and what he's got. Now, Clemson fans, you're not in the playoff. Well, that stinks. And maybe you're upset at Dabo. You do get a decent consolation prize. I think it's a decent prize. How you feel about a trip to San Diego?
There's worse places to go.
Little trip to San Diego for how about the Holiday Bowl? And you get a brand name team in Southern Cal. Bowl games don't mean what they used to. I get it. There would be opt-outs. There would be all that kind of stuff. But Clemson, Southern Cal, in the Holiday Bowl, I feel like, all right, you're not in the college football playoff. I'm not trying to tell you the bowl game matters. What I am telling you is, all right, San Diego around New Year's, Southern Cal's a brand name team. That I guess if you got to go to a bowl game is a good consolation prize.
I think to the neutral observer, that's one of those games you circle as like, oh, that could be fun type thing.
Yeah. If we can keep everybody kind of in it, and something going on, Lincoln Riley and Dabo Swinney seems like a couple good press conferences. All right, we'll take that. So, all right, you happy with that? Now, South Carolina fans, you waited patiently. You watched the playoff ranking, and South Carolina was not in there, as your head coaches said that we would be doing in November.
Promised.
So now you're not in there. So, all right, you're not in the playoff. What is your consolation prize? Well, how you feel about Memphis, Tennessee in the Liberty Bowl against Houston? Oh, yeah, you're angry. I don't know. I have no clue. I will say I know how this program would be in the month of December. The calls for Shane Beamer's job, I think, would be through the roof if this is where South Carolina ends up. Liberty Bowl is just not attractive.
Yeah.
Memphis, Tennessee, no offense to it. I've heard it's a great town. I've never been. Playing Houston, I think, does nothing for anybody.
It would basically mean you're a 6 or 7 win team based on the history of Liberty Bowl. So you would have gotten back to a bowl game, which is obviously good. But again, as Beamer called a shot of being in the mix for the playoff, you would not be a part of that in November. I can pretty safely say that.
I mean, I get it. Like bowl games now, we know what they are, what they mean. But I do think sometimes you can get a tasty little treat if you still want to travel to bowl games, if you're not blown away by players opting out and that, and you kind of understand what you're going to watch, what you're taking in. To me, you got to look at it as you're taking a family vacation or a guy's trip or a girl's trip, whatever, and you're catching a football game while you're on said trip. Memphis, Tennessee doesn't strike me as a family trip destination. I guess you can go, isn't that place, am I wrong on this, guys? Is Memphis the place where the ducks swim down the what's the hotel?
I don't know. I know they have the Bass Pro Shop in the Pyramid. So there's that.
Woo! Woohoo!
Yeah.
Memphis in late December. Better save up my days off.
Catch a Grizzlies game while you're there, maybe.
So I'm going to start saving my days. All right. For Tyler Head, for Captain David Ayer, thank you to Trey Dyson for joining us. Terry Ford for about 40 minutes. We'll talk to you tomorrow.